In his past life, the main character was a member of a team of supernatural beings, but unexpectedly he reincarnated into a life where he thought he would rise to greatness only to find himself just an ordinary person. After the bizarre event, countless supernatural creatures known as anomalies emerged, and some individuals awakened their powers to take on the responsibility of protecting society. However, the main character is currently just an average student. Without a protective system, it seems he'll have to grind his way up on his own. At that moment, in some high school, a new teacher with a supernatural aura introduced himself, but before he could finish, the classroom suddenly shattered, and a terrifying presence enveloped the school. This was the initial stage of the bizarre event, causing all the students to panic and desperately flee the classroom, wanting to escape the school. Only one student remained calm, and that was the main character. With the experience from his past life as a member of an A-class supernatural team, he understood anomalies very well. When they appear, they alter the school environment, making it nearly impossible for anyone inside to escape. Unless one can break the seal of the anomaly, only the supernatural teacher here has the ability to seal it. And because besides being a teacher, they also hold a special identity as a member of the Heavenly Organization, a state-established demon hunting group. Each member possesses unique powers, so being near them is the safest option. The main character followed him down the stairs, but unexpectedly after just one step, the staircase was abruptly cut off in a strange manner. A head had turned into a wall. The supernatural teacher wanted to use his powers to break through, but the main character stopped him from behind, knowing that using powers normally has side effects, which could allow the anomaly to strike. The supernatural teacher was somewhat shocked, realizing that this student had been following him all along. He pretended to be calm and said, "You seem to know quite a bit, so what do you think we should do next?" The main character knew he was testing him. The broken staircase was definitely caused by the anomaly. Anomalies that alter the environment come in two types: high-level anomalies that change the magnetic field, and low-level ones that can only deceive people with illusions. The way to test is simple. Anomalies form magnetic fields. They can change anything, but gold remains unaffected. So all they need to do is use gold to clear a path. After saying this, the teacher took out a gold ring and threw it at the staircase blocked by the wall, feeling a bit regretful because since humans discovered that gold could suppress anomalies, its price had skyrocketed. Just a second later, the gold ring pierced through the wall, indicating that this was merely an illusion. The main character then moved forward to the spot he had just stepped on, saying, "If I fall, be ready to pull me up." The teacher was somewhat astonished. "So you're putting your life in my hands. This kid has some guts." Fortunately, the entire way down was quite safe until they reached the first floor, where the anomaly's energy suddenly thickened. The teacher's eyes emitted a blue light as he activated his powers to scan and locked onto a target in the nearby office. Upon opening the door, they found 5 corpses on the floor, all killed by the anomaly. The actions of the 5 individuals were identical. They were all touching their necks. Each anomaly has its own killing rule, and only those who fit the rule get killed. The teacher guessed that the rule was to touch the neck, but the main character disagreed. It can't be that coincidental that all 5 were touching their necks. After saying this, he touched his own neck and sure enough did not attract the anomaly. Just then, while the 2 were still troubled, drops of water suddenly fell from the ceiling. The main character suddenly recalled that the killing rule involved water contacting the body. Moreover, just touching the skin could cause this, which would lead people to unconsciously rub their necks as if the rule had been discovered. The drops of water from the ceiling increased in number. The 2 hurriedly used their clothes to block the water, but the water fell like rain, quickly soaking their clothes, forcing them to find this anomaly as they searched room by room. Eventually, they discovered a golden vase in the principal's office. Clearly, this was the item used to seal the anomaly, but it had been opened, releasing a cloud of black mist, likely the true form of the anomaly. The main character looked at the teacher and asked if he was confident in subduing it. The teacher replied that he belonged to the support system and could only suppress the anomaly for 5 minutes, but he had informed his teammates that it would take at least 10 minutes for them to arrive, meaning they had to hold out for an additional 5 minutes in this downpour. They could only activate the suppression skill, but one piece of clothing could only withstand 2 minutes, and before even reaching 2 minutes, it was already soaked. The 2 could only change clothes to block the rain until that piece was also wet. At that point, the teacher activated his skill, shooting a blue light towards the golden vase, and the rain from the ceiling finally stopped. The teacher's teammates arrived to seal the anomaly while the main character took the opportunity to slip away unnoticed. He didn't want to attract the attention of the Heavenly Organization. In his past life, he had never awakened his powers and had joined the demon hunting team as an ordinary person, risking his life to reach A-class, only to die in a bizarre event. In this new life, he just wanted to live an ordinary life, but fate had other plans. Just as he returned home, he discovered an additional black door in the living room. Thinking it might lead to a supernatural world, he carefully opened it only to find no danger inside. It was an independent space, somewhat resembling a post office. Ahead, there was a letter and a photo. He curiously picked up the image and discovered it was a mission to deliver the letter to the outskirts cemetery and then burn it at grave number 3 within 3 days. The reward was a cursed rope. The cursed rope was an item used to deal with spirits from a past life. Even a Class A team only had 1 incomplete item. He never expected that sending the letter would be enough to complete it. He decided to give it a try that night at the outskirts cemetery. According to online sources, this cemetery existed before the supernatural events began. Due to the heavy spiritual energy, it had been sealed by the government for hundreds of years, and no supernatural occurrences had happened until recently, leading to the removal of the seal. But right now, there was only an old man with grey hair watching over it, so there was basically no danger. However, to be safe, he still brought along a golden knife. The graves in the cemetery were arranged from the inside out. Grave number 3 must be at the innermost part, but when the protagonist arrived, he found grave number 2 next to grave number 4. There was basically no grave number 3. Could it have been dug up by someone else? He continued walking in and discovered grave number 1 was even worse. Not only was the gravestone shattered, but the grave itself had been dug up with traces nearby, as if something had escaped. He immediately became alert. He wanted to search for clues among the ruined gravestones, but found the number 2 on one of them. It turned out the shattered gravestone was number 2. The gravestone for number 3 was cracked, so it looked like number 2. The protagonist hurriedly took out the letter and burned it on the spot. But after leaving, he felt a bit puzzled. If the shattered gravestone was number 2, then where had number 1 gone? On the old man's room, it was labeled number 1. After returning home, he immediately opened that black door. The scene inside had changed a bit. A new shelf had been added displaying a pile of red letters, while various strange items were arranged on the other side. There were nails and prayer beads, and among them was the cursed rope which could bind spirits. With it, the protagonist had the equivalent of a teacher's supernatural ability. He picked it up to test it and discovered a piece of paper underneath. Finally, he understood that behind the black door was a post office, and he had become a mailman. As long as he delivered the letters, he would receive a generous reward. It seemed that even without awakening supernatural abilities, one could still become powerful. Just then, there was a sudden knock at the door. He hurried out of the post office, and just a second later, the black door suddenly vanished, as if no one else had noticed. The protagonist let out a sigh of relief. There was no need to hide it himself. The visitor was a bald man who claimed to be an employee of the Celestial Organization and invited him to join. The Celestial Organization was established by the government to deal with supernatural threats. Normally, they only recruited those with supernatural abilities, but due to the excellent performance during yesterday's supernatural event, they made an exception. The protagonist sat calmly on the sofa, but as far as he knew, supernatural events were always very dangerous. You're not expecting a regular person like me to handle this, are you? Isn't that like a death sentence? The bald man hurriedly explained that the mission was not unpaid. As long as it was completed, he would receive accumulated points. Those points could be exchanged for numerous benefits and resources. He went on, but the protagonist remained unmoved. Just when the bald man was about to give up, the protagonist made a request. He only needed high-level intelligence. The bald man agreed to the protagonist's request, but mentioned that a B-level test was required. The test was at the headquarters of the Celestial Organization, where they had released a spirit on the 13th floor. As long as the protagonist could seal it, he would pass. The protagonist was secretly astonished. Most supernatural beings couldn't seal a spirit alone. The Celestial Organization was overestimating him. When he arrived on the 13th floor, he found it completely empty. It was so empty that he could see every corner of the walls with no place to hide a spirit. So there was only one possibility: it was hiding on his own body. He turned around and forcefully drove the golden nail down onto his shadow. Sure enough, the shadow let out a wailing sound and transformed into the shape of a spirit. Just a second later, the loudspeaker announced, "Congratulations, you have passed the test. Please report to the 21st floor." At that moment, the minister of the Celestial Organization behind the screen was secretly delighted, because the difficulty of the test was not sealing the spirit, but finding it in the shortest time. The current record was 6 minutes, and the protagonist had taken less than 10 minutes, which could be considered genius. But after all, he was not a supernatural being, so he couldn't take on the role of a team member in the spirit hunting squad. The minister arranged for him a position at the call center, responsible for providing intelligence to a spirit hunter named Chu Ham. The protagonist looked over some of Chu Ham's files and discovered she suffered from multiple personality disorder and had tormented 3 call center operators. She was a very difficult person to approach, but the protagonist did not refuse, as his purpose for joining the Celestial Organization was to gather intelligence. Each call center employee had a USB drive. Once plugged into a computer, they could log into the Celestial Organization's intelligence network and receive information. This would allow him to be safer while carrying out his post office missions. After returning home, he hurried online to search for information about the outskirts cemetery. Suddenly, a phone call came in. The caller was a woman, but her voice was very strange, a cute, high-pitched tone. "Hey, brother, have fun tonight," she said, followed by, "I'll be your big sister from now on. If you dare to disobey, I'll take your head off." The protagonist immediately hung up, but just a second later, she called again. "Looks like I'm starting to like you. Quick, check this out for me," she said. "It's about the spirit vehicle." It turned out this girl was Chu Ham, and she was on a spirit hunting mission. The protagonist immediately opened to check the latest intelligence about the B-level supernatural event codenamed Ling Sha, which had occurred 3 days ago. A taxi driver resting by the roadside died unexpectedly. But not long after, the driver suddenly sat up, restarted the taxi, and picked up passengers in the city. As soon as a passenger got in the car, they would immediately die. Moreover, for every person who dies, the number of taxis will increase, and that deceased person will become the driver of a new taxi. Right now, over 100 taxis have been divided, as the main character just mentioned in the intel. The phone rang again with Chu Ham's bold voice. "Only I can turn off the phone, you can't." After saying that, he hung up. The main character was about to search for his intel when suddenly a new piece of information appeared. The rule of killing for the spirit car is that while driving, it will hit and kill people, forming a new identity. This is too serious. The current rule can still be bypassed by banning taxis. If accidents keep happening, the death toll will rise sharply. He immediately called Chuham. Shut up and listen carefully. We need to know 3 laws first. Ghosts cannot be killed. Second, getting in the car will definitely lead to death. Third, being hit will surely result in death. If we block the car, we send a ghost on its way. Then the first and second laws will conflict. 2 ghosts might fight each other, or they could end up in an infinite loop, unable to complete the killing rule. Falling into a deep sleep is a very bold way to handle this, causing Chuham on the other end to be speechless. Finally, he only replied with one sentence. By early tomorrow morning, the spirit car incident will be resolved. After receiving the news, the chief was very pleased. The success of the mission was thanks to the hunting team. After failing, he wanted to take responsibility for the logistics this time. The main character had made the logistics department proud. He immediately called the main character asking, "What reward do you want?" But as soon as the main character mentioned wanting A-level intel, the minister immediately turned hostile. "You want to take 10 accumulated points, go ahead." The main character wasn't angry. As a reincarnated person, he understood the importance of accumulated points. The bizarre events had only just begun. Money can still be used, but in a few years it will be no different from scrap paper. The only currency that matters is the accumulated points. By then, 10 accumulated points will be a significant amount. The matter with the heavenly organization had just been resolved. Quickly, 7 days passed and the post office appeared once again. After opening it, there was a new piece of paper and a nail. The mission was to go to a residential area, 4th floor house, number 404, and pin it to the photo in the bedroom. The deadline was 3 days, and the reward was to awaken supernatural abilities. In his past life, the main character was most troubled by not awakening any supernatural abilities. He never expected that reincarnating would make it so easy. He immediately opened the Intel network. Upon checking information about this residential area, he discovered that it had previously experienced a D-level bizarre event, but it had already been resolved. This showed there was no danger. However, when he arrived at this residential area, he was greeted by a female ghost with a somewhat alluring appearance, exuding an incredibly terrifying aura. Strangely, he was about 10 meters away from her and was not attacked. Could it be that the rules hadn't been triggered yet? The main character didn't dare to get too close and decided to enter directly. After completing the mission, he would report to the heavenly organization. He quickly arrived at house number 404. Inside, there was a foul smell of rotting flesh. He thought it was the heavenly organization's people not doing a good job with the sanitation, but unexpectedly, the stench was coming from a knife in the kitchen. Just as he approached, a voice suddenly echoed in his head. "Take it. It will give you endless power." The main character couldn't control himself and picked up the knife. After touching it, a stream of ghostly energy surged into his body, and memories of the knife's previous owner appeared in his mind. The knife's owner had killed countless people, but upon arriving at house number 404, his hand trembled, as if he had encountered something terrifying. The main character didn't dare to stay here too long and hurriedly searched for the photo in the bedroom. But as soon as he opened the door, he was shocked to find a picture of a woman who looked exactly like the female ghost in the residential area. Could she be the owner of 404? Just as he was about to go outside to pin it, there was a knock at the door. He didn't have time to escape and hurriedly hid in the closet. Looking through a small crack in the closet, he saw that the person entering was indeed that female ghost. As if sensing an intruder in her room, she began searching every nook and cranny in the house. She quickly found her way to the bedroom. The main character prepared the knife in his hand, ready to fight for his life against her. Unexpectedly, the closet next to him suddenly opened and another female ghost chased after him. The main character thought to himself, "How could I not notice the opponent at such a close distance?" He quickly discovered the reason this closet was not ordinary. There was a fresh bloodstain on top, clearly able to block all energy. It seemed that the items in the room were not simple, especially this picture. He always felt that the person inside was alive. He didn't dare to be careless and quickly took out the nail to pin it. Unexpectedly, the woman in the picture let out a terrible scream. There was a trickle of tomato sauce running down her forehead. It turned out there was a female ghost inside the painting. The main character was so scared that he rushed out the door, glancing back while escaping, and noticed that the female ghost was not chasing him. Instead, she stood on the rooftop, motionless, looking at him with eyes full of resentment. But she didn't dare to take a step down. It turned out the female ghost couldn't leave this residential area. The main character let out a long sigh. After returning home, he jotted down this incident on a sticky note, because some ghosts could alter people's memories. He was afraid he would forget this and unexpectedly dive into the territory of the female ghost. By midnight, the post office door arrived right on time. After opening it, there was another pair of gloves and a piece of paper on the table. The paper contained 2 pieces of information. One, wearing the gloves would awaken supernatural abilities. 2, the next delivery time was 7 days later. He picked up the gloves. They felt somewhat like flesh, and he could even sense the pulse on the gloves. Unexpectedly, after putting them on, veins really appeared connecting to his arm. It crazily drained blood, and the pain caused him to faint right there. When he regained consciousness, the gloves had disappeared, and he had successfully awakened his supernatural abilities. Moreover, he had awakened 3 types at once, which was a normal situation. An awakening type can awaken multiple parts, but each position on the body can only awaken one supernatural ability. A few gifted individuals can have 2 types, while 3 types are the highest level. He was about to test which 3 supernatural abilities he had awakened. The phone suddenly rang. It was a call from Chuham. This time, there was a new mission that required a face-to-face meeting. The mission code was Crying Ghost, and the location was at the entertainment area on Guoshang Road. The killing rules were still unclear. All they could hear was the sound of crying as the entire amusement park was shrouded in fog. There were no tourists due to maintenance, but 52 staff members were trapped inside. After reviewing the documents, he brought along the cursed rope and the bone knife. Just as he arrived, a beautiful girl approached him, asking if he was the older brother. "I will protect you because I have to personally take your head off with such a twisted way of speaking." Without needing an explanation, the male lead already knew it was Chuham. He quickly began to act. The team consisted of 6 people, 3 ability users, and 3 telecommunication specialists responsible for the battle, while the telecommunication staff gathered intelligence from behind. But as soon as they entered the amusement park, one telecommunication staff member suddenly started crying on the spot. Before anyone could figure out what was happening, he bled from his nose, let out a tragic scream, and collapsed on the ground lifeless. The remaining female telecommunication staff also began to cry. The male lead immediately covered her mouth. The fog here would affect others' moods. Based on the murder rules, it was likely that crying would ensue. Just as the male lead was comforting the female staff member, a cold voice came from a man beside them. "You telecommunications staff are just here to seek death. Hurry up and die to avoid dragging our mission down." It turned out the telecommunication staff were sent to the front lines. This was an arrangement by the logistics minister of the Heavenly Organization, which had 3 departments: the Demon Hunting Department, the Intelligence Department, and the Logistics Department. Normally, only the first 2 departments would go to the front lines, so they only recruited ability users, while the Logistics Department mostly consisted of telecommunication staff. They only needed to be behind to make calls, so accepting ordinary people led to many using connections to get in, making the Logistics Department ineffective. The minister wanted to change the atmosphere, so he sent telecommunication staff to the front lines. Just a bunch of dead people could boost the Logistics Department's achievements and scare those relying on connections. After resolving the issue, the team was preparing to continue when a previously dead logistics staff member suddenly stood up and charged at them. Clearly not alive, but the ability users not only didn't take action, they even stepped back, clearly wanting the male lead and the logistics girl to be killed to avoid dragging them down. The male lead had no choice but to reveal his true strength, pulling out the bone knife and slicing through the charging demon, which startled the female staff member who had just calmed down. She was scared to tears again. Just a second later, 7 orifices bled and she fell to the ground. A bearded man approached, activating his skill without mercy, crushing her underfoot, then turned to the male lead saying, "You see it now? This is true power. Only a waste would use a knife." The male lead retorted, "With your kind of wasted ability, you'll be dead from backlash in at most 3 months, leaving the bearded man speechless. Just as the two were about to argue, the bald man suddenly noticed the situation. There was one person still alive, and with a guide they quickly found the underground shelter of the staff. However, inside, someone had already been controlled by the demon. As soon as the door opened, the demon lunged at the male lead, who immediately tossed it to the bearded man behind. Although he had crushed this demon with a kick, he felt extremely frustrated. "Are you challenging me?" After saying that he intended to attack the male lead, but Linham activated her skill saying, "I found the true form of the crying demon. It's right there on the Ferris wheel." Everyone looked up and indeed saw a child up there. The bearded man shot up first like a rocket soaring hundreds of meters high, but just as he reached the Ferris wheel, the crying demon vanished without a trace. At this moment, the male lead relied on his past life experience to educate them. High-level demons possess a demon realm. As long as they are within the demon realm, they will have abilities similar to teleportation. However, teleportation requires a long time and has a limited distance. The crying demon's strength isn't strong. The distance it can move is definitely not long, so the 4 of them just needed to spread out in a square. No matter where the crying demon teleported, someone would notice it, and then they could catch it during the cooldown period. But just as they were preparing to act, someone claiming to be a stakeholder of the amusement park ran over asking, "Are you the state rescue staff?" "Don't worry about that demon. Just get us outside quickly or we will file a complaint against you." The male lead hated people who thought too highly of themselves. "Who said I came to save you? Our mission is to deal with the demon." "You dare to keep talking." The bald man immediately felt scared and knelt down pleading. The 4 of them ignored him and quickly spread out. Meanwhile, sounds of fighting came from the bearded man's side, just as the male lead rushed over. He discovered that the demon had been tied up by the bearded man and was preparing to take action when the bald man appeared behind him and activated his ability. Unexpectedly, he attacked not the crying demon, but the bearded man who was caught off guard and died on the spot. It turned out the bald man was from the Buddhist sect. After the strange demons appeared, humanity faced 2 major forces. One was the Taoist sect, and the other was the Buddhist nation. In his past life, several cities on the verge of destruction had sought help from the Buddhist nation. As a result, they just watched, ignoring millions of people being slaughtered by the strange demons. From then on, the Buddhist nation was labeled as cold-blooded, so the male lead didn't have a good impression of them. The bald man saw that the male lead was not surprised. It seems you already know my identity. That's right. I am an undercover agent of the Buddhist nation infiltrating the heavenly organization. This strange demon event is also part of my plan. That bearded guy discovered my identity, so I can only think of a way to send him back to the West. Now you are here too. After saying that he controlled the crying demon to charge at the male lead, thinking he was just an ordinary person. What he didn't know was that he had awakened the ability of the Guardian, and had already incapacitated this crying demon with one hand. So, this is all the courage you have. I'm shocked to find out that a call center worker has awakened their powers, but he still has a backup plan. Just a second later, a demon appears behind the main character. A hand with sharp claws suddenly lunges at him. Calmly, Vungdiep uses a binding rope to deal with the female demon, tightly tying her up and forcefully pulling her away, lifting her trembling body with one hand. She struggles, and he immediately uses his strength to throw her back to where Fatback is standing. Is this all you've got? The guy furrows his brows in anger, glaring at him and shouting, "Damn it, I won't back down." He smirks defiantly, trying to defend himself. I admit I wasn't paying attention, but maybe you're not as good as you think. Suddenly, a sharp pain shoots through his body. Controlling two demons is too much for him. Without hesitation, he charges forward to counterattack. Let's finish this quickly. He stands still, his voice calm as he asks, "Don't you think you're underestimating others too much?" Just as he stands there in confusion, a sword glides across his neck. Before he can finish his sentence, his head is severed from his body. The silent observer, he coldly watches the entire outcome from a distance. Chuham. Now he gently appears and speaks. "Hey, little brother, when did you notice me?" She smiles playfully, casually retracting her sword. As she approaches, he straightforwardly states his position. Each of us caught one demon, so let's share the credit. Chuham looks at the two unconscious demons on the ground. She replies, "But I caught both of them. Moreover, I believe that even if I hadn't intervened, you could have handled this one. So why are you being so generous in sharing the credit with me?" His face shows no emotion as he replies in a low voice, "You can't survive by taking all the credit. Besides, even without me, you probably could have dealt with this guy and the two demons easily. Miss Chuham, you've been hiding your incompetence from the start. How annoying." While he cleans up the scene, he carefully reminds her, "I trust. You know how to report the situation when we go outside." She pouts, sounding a bit sulky as she responds, "I know who has the time to mess with the troubles of the Buddha clan." Vungdiep, with an unreadable calm demeanor, seems unfazed by everything happening around him. "I'm only concerned about my powers. After all, I'm just an ordinary person who's lucky enough to have obtained an extraordinary item." Chuham beside him slightly pouts her lips in dissatisfaction. "As expected, my mom said all men are cunning. But I'll keep it a secret from you, little brother." She tilts her head, her lips curling into a knowing smile as she leans close to whisper in his ear. "It just seems like twisting your head has become a bit more difficult." As night falls in a gloomy park, Huatrach gathers a team of staff standing straight. He orders the investigation team to prepare to enter and carry out rescue operations. Deputy Minister Trak. He adjusts his tie and says, "The others, along with a few doctors, need to treat quickly." He asks, "Why are there only two people?" Two figures emerge from inside Chuham and Vungdiep. Huatrach approaches, puzzled. "Why are there only two? Where are the others?" Chu asks, turning towards a ghostly boy tied up in the blue light. Huatrach says to her, "Aren't there supposed to be two? Where's the other one?" Vungdiep raises his hand and coughs a few times, clearing his throat. He holds a thick rope binding the girl who kneels down, banging her head hard against the ground. Huatrach is startled, thinking, "Isn't this guy supposed to be an ordinary person sent by Trung Tulang to sacrifice himself?" Vung tilts his head and says, "Could you please stop staring? Lock them up first." Huatrach stammers, "Okay, you've worked hard." He orders to seal and imprison the two captives. The two red lights are drawn into a golden jar. Vungdiep watches the vehicle drive away, thinking that in this era, to survive, one should maintain humility. He shouts, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." As the vehicle drives further away, Chuham excitedly says, "That was quite an interesting part." A loud scream comes from a tall building. He wonders, is that for real? It's the voice of Truntu, who slams the table and shouts, "Yes." Jungsam, standing nearby, teases, "Missing your wife, huh?" He angrily shakes with rage, saying, "Get lost." He continues, "Vungdiep survived." He's shocked. Even if he's an ordinary person, just being a little careless could lead to survival. Is it really necessary to be this agitated? But more importantly, do you really think the logistics team is all useless? No one could survive. So this isn't just an assessment, it's outright murder then. Moreover, I'm quite impressed with this Wang Ye. He's performing pretty well. Mr. Zhang leaned back and replied, "If he just survives, I wouldn't need to be so agitated." His expression turned serious as he continued. Not only did he survive, but he also subdued a demon. This time, everyone has underestimated the supernatural events. Both of those supernatural beings are out of the picture. What does this mean? I don't need to elaborate further. Yang Shen replied excitedly, "Are you serious?" Mr. Zhang stroked his chin and said, "Nonsense. This means my plan is solid. This newcomer Wang Ye can even handle a demon. Then those ordinary talents who are lazy and living comfortably can't just sit back and relax. After all, they still have a few tricks up their sleeves." He chuckled and continued, "I knew it. With my keen eye, I could tell Wang Ye wasn't an ordinary person." "Ha ha!" He slammed the table, standing up and shouting, "I want to meet Wang Ye." The car sped down the road and the driver turned to say to Wang Ye, "Minister Zhang wants to see you." He asked me. He thought for a moment, but the logistics department isn't my ultimate goal. It won't be long before the second wave of supernatural events breaks out, escalating everything. If there's no backing, it'll be tough to survive. He thought about the North Buddha. Team A had just been formed not long ago. An organization formed from various teams will have access to all official resources. This was one of the original reasons I joined the logistics team. Transferring Team A to the new organization through the logistics department is my plan. After thinking it over, he exclaimed, "Let's go meet the minister." The car raced down the quiet road, and he was still lost in his thoughts. However, right now, Zhang Zilang still holds value for me at the headquarters. In the office, the two met. Mr. Zhang spoke up this time. "You did very well. I didn't misjudge you." He calmly replied, "It's just that the demon's killing rule this time was quite simple, not too dangerous." Mr. Zhang picked up a cup of water from the table and said, "But this time, two supernatural beings are out of the game." He continued, "They were really foolish." He raised the cup and spoke. "What reward do you want, Mr. Wang?" He crossed his arms and replied, "A-level intelligence authority." Upon hearing this, Mr. Zhang was shocked and spat out his drink. Mr. Zhang, while gulping down water, struggled to say, "A-level intelligence authority isn't easy to obtain like that. At least you need 200 accumulated points. Based on your current contributions, you only have 25 accumulated points." He replied thoughtfully, "I've only been in office for 7 days." Mr. Zhang placed his hands on the table and said, "Oh no, that won't do. Change your request." After saying that, he pondered, this guy is indeed different from ordinary people. In just 7 days, he has earned 25 accumulated points. He chuckled lightly and replied, "Team A." Mr. Zhang frowned at Wang Ye, leaning over the table to speak to the young man. "It seems your record isn't too clean either. Where did you hear about Team A?" He looked at him with an emotionless expression and asked, "You sent people from the logistics department to the front lines to sacrifice themselves for this, right?" Mr. Zhang looked at him with a tense expression. Outside the door, Yang Shen had begun to use his magic. He sat calmly in his chair and asked, "Why are you so tense?" Minister Yang Shen outside listened to their entire conversation. He continued, "You're the minister and I'm just a staff member. You want the logistics department to carry more weight. I also want to become stronger. Our interests align." He stood up and continued, "Even if I fall, during the mission you're still the minister holding real power, aren't you?" Mr. Zhang smirked and replied, "Interesting. You want to gain my investment?" Zhang Zi crossed his arms, looking seriously at Wang Ye. "But I'm just an ordinary person. Why should I invest resources in you, Mr.?" Wang extended his hand towards Yang Shen and said, "Who said I'm an ordinary person?" He extended his hand, revealing a stream of red light. The light lifted Yang Shen up high. Yang Shen was taken aback as Mr. Wang raised him up. Yang Shen turned and said, "What are you doing? Put me down." Mr. Zhang was startled. He let Yang Shen down, causing him to struggle for breath as he fell. Mr. Wang looked at him and said, "Minister, are you satisfied with my strength?" He extended his hands towards him, saying, "No problem. I hope you'll always be the most outstanding staff member of our logistics department." The two shook hands in agreement. Yang Shen looked up at Wang Ye helplessly as he stood from the high-rise building looking down. He wondered if these logistics department guys really hoped to make achievements and survive. He replied, "They're just a bunch relying on connections. And if they don't want to work, they'll resign." He turned back to look at him and said, "Moreover, who said our logistics department is made up of ordinary people?" He turned back and replied, "Oh, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." As he stepped out the door, he thought this old fox really holds a grudge, but he dares to act like this. It must be that there's a hidden ace. Jung glanced at Trung, who was calmly sipping water, and asked, "Jung, what do you think of Wung Diep's strength?" Jung rubbed his chin and said, "Very strong. At least if he really intended to kill me just now, I wouldn't have had the strength to resist." He was angry and shouted, "But that was a sneak attack if I had time to prepare. He awkwardly continued, "I could definitely put up some resistance." Trung leaned back in his chair and said, "Promote Wung Diep to team leader of Team 2 and assign him to the vacant position. Send someone to equip him with the latest gear." Jung complied, responding, "Understood." Jung picked up the phone and called, asking, "What's going on with this guy? Clearly the test results show no special abilities." Trung sighed in relief. "Let's keep this quiet for now to avoid those lab crazies taking him for experiments. That would be a real shame." Once home, Jung plopped down on the mattress. He thought the plan had taken its first step. The start was smooth, but after awakening his abilities, his hands seemed a bit numb, along with his whole body. Was this the price of using special powers? He raised his trembling hands and thought about what it would be like to have special abilities. He continued thinking that if this went on, his hands would overexert the body's energy and other parts would gradually decay. He needed to quickly awaken the second part to replenish energy. He looked at the calendar marking the 10th and the 5th. He believed that through the post office, the danger had decreased significantly. He was really looking forward to the next part of the post office. Wung Diep sat seriously in front of the screen, thinking that these days had passed very quietly. The logistics department hadn't assigned him any tasks. He heard noises from outside. Resignation letters were falling, and everyone in the logistics department stood in contemplation. He thought about how Trung Tulang continued to send people to the front lines, leading to most staff resigning. He just didn't expect it. With such a screening, the logistics department had acquired 12 capable special ability users who couldn't be underestimated. As he stepped out, he thought that although each mission was quite dangerous, the rewards were enormous. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to negotiate conditions with Trung Tu Lang. He was surprised by the syrup-stained letter. It seemed that the difficulty of this mission was not low. The syrup-stained letters were scattered on the floor next to a key. He opened the letter and said, "However, the post office's missions, no matter how dangerous, always have potential." After reading the letter, he spoke up. The official mission transfer needs to be checked first. If so, after the official transfer, the authority might be greater. He stepped out the door, and in front of him was a large vehicle covered in a rosy hue. He wondered, is this the post office vehicle? Could it be that the post office could transmit special energy into reality? He got into the vehicle and closed the door. He brushed off the dust while coughing continuously. He touched the steering wheel and thought it felt a bit strange. It felt like human skin. As he was driving, a large truck suddenly rushed out. He quickly swerved to avoid it, but still scraped against the truck. Looking in the mirror, he saw the vehicle was unharmed. He replied, "This delivery vehicle can pass through objects." The system interface appeared, and he was surprised to see the mission location was the wasteland, after Vindar. The world had turned into a wasteland with a series of skulls smashing through glass. Gods stood high, subduing demons. He thought while speaking, the Buddhist path relies on a mysterious foundation to forcibly open the Pure Land. Establishing the Buddhist nation, the map of yin and yang became clear. He continued mumbling, "With the help of the state, 10 cities have been opened." Even so, events involving special abilities frequently erupted within the city. A vehicle rushed straight into the wasteland, a desolate area that was a playground for demons. The demons peered out at him. Although the wasteland was dangerous, it was also full of opportunities. Special ability users with no way out would choose to go to the wasteland to seek opportunities. They were called the 10 Wastelanders, but 99% of them had already met their end. Vungdiep drove comfortably, showing no signs of fear. It was said that the 1% of survivors brought back very valuable items. Even deep in the wasteland where survival was a slim chance, he believed. Suddenly he slammed on the gas to speed up. The post office wouldn't issue missions that couldn't be completed. Vungdiep couldn't help but lift the corners of his mouth, looking quite pleased. The vehicle sped away, leaving behind a scene no one wanted to look back at. But at that moment in a dark apartment, a suspicious shadow suddenly looked up. Revealing a face resembling Vungdiep Chuhan outside was laughing wickedly. "Little brother, you definitely didn't expect me to come back to find you." Suddenly the door swung open and Vungdiep peeked through the slight gap. With a vacant gaze, he looked at the person standing in front of him. Chuhan smiled brightly, her tone extremely fake. "Hello, Vung." But before she could finish her words, Vungdiep had already walked away. She watched his retreating figure with a sly grin. Next, Chuhan threw out numerous small daggers, aiming straight for the back of Vungdiep's neck. Chuhan was confident she could do it, laughing with great assurance as the daggers pierced through him, embedding themselves in all 4 limbs of Vungdiep. The space seemed to freeze for a second after the parts were severed. The head of Wangdiep rolled across the floor. Chuham slowly approached, chuckling with delight at having finally cut off this guy's chi. She leisurely took out her phone to check in at the spot, celebrating her victory for a moment before leaving, humming a cheerful tune and politely closing the door behind her. At this moment, the room returned to its usual quietness. Chuham didn't realize her eyes had been wide open for quite some time. Wangdiep's car was still cruising along when suddenly a demon crawled onto the road. Wangdiep was so frustrated that he cursed under his breath. "Damn it can't be that this demon is in the way." To his surprise, as the car rolled closer, the demon hurriedly crawled to the roadside. Through the rearview mirror, he saw countless demons standing on both sides of the road and the cliff merely watching. Wangdiep wondered, are the demons afraid of this mail truck too? Suddenly he opened his eyes wide. Something unusual was ahead. Not far from his car, a demon was sitting behind a bonfire completely covered except for its face, making strange sounds. Every word it spoke turned into letters that flew towards Wangdiep, swirling around him, leaving him stunned. But then Wangdiep covered his ears, feeling extremely uncomfortable. It sounded just like the wailing of demons at an amusement park. Trying to steer with one hand, he decided to speed up. If the demon was afraid of the mail truck, this would disrupt it. But unexpectedly, this demon didn't try to dodge like the others. It just sat there. In fact, it opened its mouth wide, spewing out even more words. Wangdiep's mind was buzzing, feeling disoriented. Was this demon not afraid? Should I ram it or take a detour? He had to grip the steering wheel and make a slight turn, just enough to avoid this crazy demon. The car swayed, but stabilized again. Thankfully, it didn't chase after him. Wangdiep was sweating profusely, still a bit dazed, wondering just how powerful this demon was. If it appeared in the area, the consequences would be unimaginable. Now he realized the danger. A chill ran down his spine as he swallowed hard. The mission of the red letter was indeed not simple. He feared that there was even more danger ahead. He continued deeper and tombs appeared on both sides of the road. Wangdiep felt a bit suspicious. It looked just like an outer city cemetery. The car had to drive past layers upon layers of gravestones. What kind of situation is this? Suddenly, something caught his eye ahead of a house. Wangdiep looked at it astonished. This wooden house was completely like the outer city cemetery. But when he looked closer, he saw a figure in the window. A chill ran down his spine and he broke out in a cold sweat. It was an old man holding a lamp, staring at him with a smile. Wang Diep gritted his teeth, focused on driving faster. His face was pale. This was deep in the wilderness. How could a person live in this creepy place? His car left a cloud of dust wherever it went. As Wang Diep's shadow gradually faded, the door slowly creaked open, revealing the old man's cunning smile. One hand firmly on the steering wheel, the other wiping the sweat pouring down from the tension. Wang Diep finally felt relieved. This cemetery was 10 kilometers long. Thankfully, he was getting out. He continued to follow the map, realizing he was quite close to the destination, but there were still many wandering souls lingering on both sides of the road, teasing him. Wang Diep felt that this mail truck didn't provide a sense of safety at all. Suddenly ahead, there was a building that looked beautiful, but was completely dark. As the car approached, a knife, lying at his feet, suddenly emitted a white smoke. Wang Diep noticed it, reacted, picked it up to take a look, and realized it was an old building. In the memory of that bone-slicing knife, it suddenly shone brighter and the smoke billowed straight towards his head. Wang Diep covered his head, gritting his teeth in apparent pain. It felt as if hands holding knives were pointing directly at his face. Wang Diep felt a bit panicked, shaking his head to try to stay awake. What was going on in this creepy place? Too many terrifying entities. Just then the car passed by that building, and right after the door, an eye was glaring at him, watching through the gap. Of course he missed it and continued moving forward. There was a flickering light ahead, and as he got closer, he realized it was a stage with performers and an audience, all of whom were demons. Particularly the one dancing caught Wang Diep's attention for a long time. Suddenly his body froze. A seductive, eerie voice echoed in his ears. "Come here. Come listen to the play. Don't go away." The strange audience outside slowly moved closer, and he extended his hand continuously, luring. "Come here." Wang Diep quickly placed his hand on the door lock, tightening it. A thin, syrup-like liquid flowed from his mouth, his face tense. The sudden banging on the door sent a wave of fear rising in his heart. The sound from this stage was terrifying. Compared to the previous cries of demons, this was many times more horrifying. Suddenly, a shadow of a hand appeared on the car's glass, and looking far ahead, it was a gigantic arm. Wang Diep's heart raced, and his eyes widened in terror. His heart felt like it was being squeezed by someone. He placed his hand there, squeezing hard to alleviate the pain. Just one glance from this monstrous hand was enough to make one feel an immense pressure. Wang Diep struggled to regain his composure and looked up to observe once more. What's the connection between this thing and the severed hand depicted in the embroidered painting number 10 in room 404? It's hovering above the audience when suddenly it reaches down and the palm slams hard onto the ground. The impact sends rocks flying everywhere. The force is no joke, even causing an earthquake that splits the ground in two. Wang Diep swerves to avoid it, making a precarious turn that nearly tips him over, and he quickly covers his mouth with his hand to stop himself from screaming. Syrup is dripping through his fingers, his voice filled with panic. "We have to get out of here fast." The post office directed me to these two locations that are closely related to the royal soil. As Wang Diep accelerates, the arm behind him also reaches out, and the positioning sound keeps ringing monotonously. With only 500 meters left to the destination, tension fills the air. But finally, the machine signals that they have arrived. Wang Diep stops the vehicle, thankful to the heavens for surviving to this point, when suddenly the wind starts howling. In front of him stands a very eerie female statue. Now Wang Diep's real challenge begins. He holds the letter in his hand, hesitating slightly as the mission notice instructs him to deliver the letter to the first person he sees. But he can't just get out of the car. After all, this vehicle is his greatest protection right now. Just as he finishes speaking, a figure suddenly appears in the rearview mirror, a middle-aged man dressed like a successful businessman. With a suspicious smile on his face, Wang Diep hesitates to speak first. "Are you the one receiving the letter?" Before he can hear the man's response, the door swings open with a bang. An old woman, her teeth nearly all gone, steps out and shouts, "Don't give it to him. He's not a person." Wang Diep is startled. Not a person. He feels a bit confused and curses under his breath. The post office's mission notice has a trap. It states to deliver the letter to the first person seen, but the man is not human. The middle-aged man extends his hand and simply denies it. "Don't be fooled by her. Give the letter to me." The old woman behind keeps shouting, "You can't give it to him." Wang Diep is surprised, wondering if these two are actually having a conversation, because it contradicts everything he knew from his past life. While dealing with countless events, there were no demons that could think or feel, let alone communicate. Now it seems that not all demons lack thought. Wang Diep firmly suspects that at least one of the two in front of him is a high-level demon. He decides to close his eyes to clear his mind, trying to think about what detail he overlooked as the post office wouldn't issue an impossible mission. Suddenly, Wang Diep remembers something and opens his eyes wide. "I got it." The old woman and the letter recipient then see the letter in Wang Diep's hand. He steps forward and hands the letter to the recipient. The old woman, seeing this, can't believe it and exclaims, "Why?" Her body then convulses violently to the point where her right eye pops out. After that, the old woman transforms into a young girl, who now curiously asks, "How did you figure it out?" Wang Diep explains, "You had too many flaws. First, how could there be an old weak woman deep in the royal soil? Secondly, your personality is too ordinary after all this time. People with such personalities don't live long." Wang Diep points two fingers at the demoness, affirming, "In the end, she always stood at the door of that house, never stepping out. She must be sealed." Hearing Wang Diep's perfectly accurate reasoning, she becomes furious and screams. The letter recipient beside her speaks up, "Good job, you're quite something." From his hand, powerful dark energy begins to emerge. He slowly approaches the demoness, surrounded by a mysterious aura of dark energy. Seeing this scene, Vungdiep is surprised. This guy has awakened 5 parts. How strong could he be? He thinks to himself, it seems he's not at all unfamiliar with the post office's letters. Unable to hold back his curiosity, Vungdiep asks, "Do you know about the post office?" However, just as he finishes asking, a blinding light bursts forth from the house. It forces him to cover his eyes with his hand. The light flashes for just a moment before disappearing. Vungdiep lowers his hand, looking around. The house is gone, leaving only an empty void. Seeing this, he is a bit surprised. It disappeared. Vungdiep doesn't stay surprised for long. He calms himself, reminding himself that this world is still full of unknowns. But he knows that one day he will make this world his own. With a determined look, he declares, "There are no more secrets." Vungdiep steps forward, ready to get into the car. However, at that moment, a wave of dark energy catches his attention from afar. He sees a man, the source of the dark energy, a burly guy dressed in ancient attire. As he gets closer, the man reveals his terrifying nature, especially since he doesn't even have a face. Without hesitation, Vungdiep jumps into the car, immediately starting to turn the key to ignite the engine, but it seems to be unresponsive. Despite trying multiple times, the car won't start. Vungdiep begins to feel anxious and shouts, "Why won't it go?" The demon is now at the window, and seeing him, Vungdiep is startled no face. The car suddenly roars to life as if responding to his inner thoughts. He presses the gas pedal, and the car starts rolling. The demon sees this and quickly steps aside, only able to watch as the back of the car fades into the distance. However, at that moment, the demon's face begins to change. His face suddenly transformed into the face of the demon, and he joyfully exclaimed, "I've got his face now. Curse him, curse him." Suddenly, he let out a loud scream, and a blinding beam of light shot out from his face. The demon, with his blood-red eyes, looked around and collapsed, trembling as he clutched his face. His face began to disintegrate, and eventually the face he had taken from the demon completely vanished. A fog started to surround the demon as he turned back to see that the demon had successfully escaped. While driving, he wondered why the mail truck had extinguished the flames earlier. He recalled what had just happened and thought to himself that the tang blade in that demon's hand was likely a powerful mystical artifact. Unfortunately, he hadn't acquired any treasures during this mission, and he remembered the tombstones he had passed by in the graveyard. There were no demons lurking around, and it seemed these tombstones had the ability to suppress demons. At that moment, a red figure appeared behind the mail truck. It was the female demon from the opera. She looked at the mail truck and chuckled softly. Vungdiep, sitting inside the truck, thought to himself that it seemed completely empty here. Was this all created by that demon? After a while, he arrived at another house. Vungdiep sat in the truck, feeling relieved that this time the delivery was smooth and without any reactions, making the way back much easier. At that moment, he seemed to notice something on a nearby hill, 2 figures. Vungdiep suddenly recognized something and shouted out. On the hill, a battle was taking place between 2 people, one dressed as a Taoist priest and the other glowing like a light bulb. Suddenly, a giant hand descended from the sky, interrupting their fight. From a distance, Vungdiep quietly moved away from the battle. Vungdiep found this place intriguing. He said that every mission from the post office offered a chance to showcase skills, but the level of danger here was quite high. It was hard to find opportunities to gain anything. After a while, as he crossed the road, 3 pieces of yellow paper suddenly fell onto the roof of Vungdiep's truck. He immediately sensed something from the 3 pieces of paper. He swerved the truck back and forth to catch them. Vungdiep grabbed the talisman in his hand and thought to himself that this cold energy seemed to be controlling the supernatural abilities within him. Realizing its function, he felt a surge of joy. If this paper could suppress supernatural powers, it might extend the lifespan of a supernatural being. Just then, a shadow appeared in front of the truck, causing Vungdiep to feel a bit anxious. The cursed creature was one of the demons he had encountered before. Vungdiep quickly placed the 3 pieces of paper he had just obtained into a box. Indeed, even though there was danger, the benefits were promising. He placed the box on his lap and happily said that there might be a chance to safely scavenge valuable items in the wasteland. After a moment, something shiny and golden appeared in front of Vungdiep, making him excited. Suddenly, another demon appeared from behind. Seeing this, Vungdiep felt a bit scared. He swerved the truck again to avoid the crowd of demons, wondering why the demon behind him was so terrifying. Suddenly, he felt something was off with the truck. Why isn't it slowing down? Why is the truck going slower? Outside the truck, another demon broke the window and attacked inside. In this critical moment, Vungdiep thought of a way to defeat it. He had heard that supernatural beings could absorb external elements like demons. Strengthening his own abilities, he tightly grasped the demon's tentacle. Vungdiep quickly jumped out of the truck. The demon, taken aback, was caught off guard. He pinned the demon down, holding its 2 tentacles in his hands, slowly draining its life force. "Looks like you're my prey now," Vungdiep said, tightening his grip and pulling the demon's tentacle. He struggled to absorb its energy while shouting loudly. After a while, the demon lay down exhausted. Suddenly, a beam of light shot from behind him. A light struck the ground, and Vungdiep was surprised. He realized it wasn't a person but a golden arrow. Then he noticed something else from a distance. A figure of a man was rushing towards him. With incredible speed, he grabbed a stone and threw it at him. The man dodged, and Vungdiep gathered strength in his legs to jump high. He leaped down with a powerful fiery punch. Vung Diep's punch struck the ground, causing the ground to crack. Seeing his strength, the man fell in fear. Vung Diep twisted his wrist and slowly approached him. Sensing danger, the man quickly tried to negotiate. Hey, buddy! There's a misunderstanding. Hearing this, Vung Diep questioned, a misunderstanding. Really? The man approached him and said, It seems everyone here is a scavenger looking for treasures. It's normal to want to claim them. He raised both hands in surrender and continued, But clearly, you have the right to take that. Let's just forget this incident and avoid any trouble. Hearing him, Vung Diep found it laughable. Ha! Are you joking with me? That arrow just now? If I hadn't reacted quickly, I would have been a corpse by now. He replied, Why should it be that way? The wasteland is dangerous. If we end up in conflict again, everyone will suffer, right? At that moment, the man was suddenly interrupted by a punch from Vung Diep, who was trying to cut him off with his awakened ability. The man seemed to be pulled towards Vung Diep's fist by some unseen force. Seeing this, he widened his eyes in surprise and stepped back simultaneously, throwing something towards Vung Diep. In his hand, Vung Diep suddenly held a doll and its eyes began to spin. Then it emitted a strange aura, and suddenly its eyes caught fire. Vung Diep immediately threw it away, and after being tossed, the doll burst into flames. The man had successfully fled. Seeing this, Vung Diep thought to himself, as expected, the 10 hunters who could come here are not simple. Looking at his position, he thought to himself that based on the mission route, he would soon return to the capital. Sitting in the driver's seat, he said even though he didn't need to waste time on people like this, he couldn't help but feel anxious about what might happen next. Vung Diep pressed the gas pedal, but couldn't control his inner turmoil. My car sped off, chasing after the man from earlier, the alarm blaring as it warned to return to the correct trajectory. The 10 hunters were fleeing down the road. Cursing under his breath about his bad luck for encountering that guy, he suddenly turned his head and saw a figure chasing after him. Why was he following me here too? Before he could finish his thoughts, a sword swept across his neck. You dare! His head fell to the ground with a thud. Vung Diep looked down with a cold gaze and let out a slight huff, gently touching the cut on his neck. He assessed the situation lightly. The side effects of the bone-cutting knife would have some impact on the user, right? He sat down and reached out to touch the right hand of the hunter. The first reaction of this guy was to reach into his pocket. It seemed this was his life-saving treasure. He pulled out a figurine, and the corners of Vung Diep's mouth curled up slightly. This thing can take the hits for him. Not bad. Returning to his car, Vung Diep looked around, worried that he might exploit a bug to find treasures. A red message appeared on the windshield, making him frustrated. Damn it, he muttered as the car moved once more down the desolate road. Finally, it was almost over. He stood in front of his house, scratching his head and letting out a sigh. Finally, he was home. Suddenly, his eyes widened, as if something had caught his attention. A small hair fell at the door, quickly becoming a clue. This was the hair he had caught in the door before going out. It seemed someone had entered. Vung Diep's face darkened, the atmosphere tense with danger. He pushed the door open calmly and stepped inside, alert for anything. The house was empty. Not even a light was on. He plopped down on the sofa in the living room and laughed loudly. It seemed he had overthought things. Suddenly, a dark figure slowly appeared behind him, letting out a creepy laugh. The shadow gradually took shape, mimicking his appearance except for its unusually red eyes. Vung Diep opened his eyes, a smug smile spreading across his face. Can't hold back anymore. You're willing to clean up the room for me, huh? He threw the rope tied to his back towards the dark figure. After tying it tightly, he couldn't help but sneer. Just a ghost and you want to ambush me? A distorted smile appeared on its face, and the laughter was eerily enchanting. This surprised Vung Diep, mixed with a bit of curiosity. The rope had no effect on him. This wasn't a ghost. Faced with its fiery state, he shouted, Who sent you? But it didn't answer. The flames grew stronger, gradually spreading across its grotesque face, burning fiercely. Vung Diep had to raise his hand to shield himself. He pinched his nose, the nauseating smell of rotting flesh hitting his brain. He stared intently at the spot where the ghost had stood earlier, thinking that this thing intended to ambush him. But after being discovered, it self-ignited, meaning the one controlling it knew it couldn't deal with him and didn't want him to find any clues. He took out his phone and typed a few things on the screen. Was the one behind this human or ghost? As soon as he picked up the phone, a voice came from the other end. Have you dealt with the thing in the house? Vung Diep frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, How do you know? Chung Tulung propped his feet up on the long table and chuckled softly. Come on, I'm the minister. If I didn't have some intelligence skills, what could I do? He bit his lip, cursing him silently. That old fox clearly knew there was a problem, but didn't bother to give a heads up. Was he trying to test his strength? After a month, he finally calmed down and casually replied, Thank you for your concern, Mr. Trung. He spoke in a tone that carried a hint of seriousness. All right, let's get to the point. Today, a powerful ghost from the energy layer has broken into the city area. Chung Tu was recalling the terrifying scenes currently unfolding in the city. The logistics team had sent 7 ability users, but it still wasn't enough to handle the situation. The story came through his words. It seemed quite serious. This incident had caused significant repercussions. If resolved, there might be a quota for a small team. Hearing this, Vung Diep quickly asked, So you need me to handle it? He issued the final command, instructing him to prepare himself for the crucial moment when he would need to take action. Naturally, he felt a bit curious about this move. Why not do it now without me? Trong Tu let out a soft chuckle. Carrying a hint of pride, he spoke in a low voice, as if reflecting on the current state of the city. After all, only those who appear in moments of desperation are the most noble and radiant figures. Isn't that right? A slight smile appeared on his lips. his questions somewhat cold. Even if a few people would lose their lives, he not only did not oppose it, but actually supported that idea. Yes, what I need is an elite squad, not a retirement home. Looking at the pitch-black phone screen, Wang Diep felt a bit uneasy. Was cooperating with this cold-blooded guy the right decision? Suddenly, he felt an overwhelming heaviness throughout his body, utterly exhausted. Then he reached out to touch the low-hanging green cord, murmuring softly that this still had a bit left, but his current state wasn't suitable for absorbing it. He gently pulled out a thin piece of paper that looked like a band-aid and placed it on his hand. Wang Diep leaned back, closing his eyes to let it nourish his body, and the feeling of soreness and pain began to ease. Indeed, this could extend the physical capabilities of a superhuman. The fatigue made his eyelids heavy, as if they wanted to close. After a few hours, he sat up straight, holding his head, thinking a bit that he had slept for a long time. Well then, I should go to the post office to collect my reward. Gently opening the door, Wang Diep stepped outside with a confident demeanor. Finally, the moment to receive the reward had arrived. Looking at the dense black smoke before him, he couldn't help but wonder what it was. Suddenly, the black smoke approached him. It surprised him, making him exclaim loudly, "Oh!" The smoke wrapped around him tightly, like ropes, knocking him to the ground. The black smoke quickly enveloped his body covered in wounds, and he clutched his neck in despair. Suddenly, he stopped, his eyes wide in disbelief at what was happening. The black smoke slowly released its grip on his body. Wang Diep immediately looked down at his two hands, which were previously covered in wounds but now healed. He thought to himself, the wounds are all healed. His body had been enhanced. Was this the reward for becoming a demon messenger? His face was filled with confusion as he looked at his body, full of doubt. His clothes had been neatly replaced. He observed and silently praised the power this force was just too overwhelming. Wang Diep stood up, and a piece of paper fell from his body. He picked it up and read each line inside. The outfit he was wearing prevented curses from a distance, and allowed him to upgrade his privileges to use a courier vehicle once a month. Wang Diep thought it could also enhance his physical strength and prevent curses from a distance. Although the clothes were a bit shabby, who cared? He smiled proudly at this convenient ability. His phone vibrated, displaying a familiar name, Trong Tu Luong. He immediately answered, and a hurried voice came through. "Hello, I just called you, but you're out of coverage." "What's going on?" Wang Diep replied calmly. "I was studying an anomalous item, so I might have blocked the phone signal." He reminded him, "You should show up now. That thing is scarier than you think. They can't hold on any longer." He reported the news that 3 survivors had been transmitted today. His expression turned serious as he informed Trong Tu Luong. "Let me know. Give me 10 minutes to prepare." He raised his hand to grab an item that looked like a cracked purple stick. He thought back to when he found that strange item in the wasteland. Now was the time to use it. Wang Diep gripped the item tightly in his hand, a surge of red energy enveloping his hand. A strange creature, dark purple with bright, furious eyes, opened its mouth wide, screaming in rage, emitting a glaring golden light. The blinding light radiated around this strange creature. He frowned in discomfort, feeling the red energy gradually spreading through his arm, realizing he could sense the power continuously pouring into the item, which had turned into a thick red liquid. It dripped onto the table as he focused on observing the palm of his hand, the creature's face firmly stuck to it. He knelt down to adjust the items hidden at his feet, then stood up confidently and stepped outside. A black car was waiting outside. The courier got out, opened the door, and waited for him to get in. Both of them climbed into the car, and as he drove, he handed Wang Diep a stack of letters saying the address was a shopping center near the entrance of the city of Tan Nam. Within a 1-kilometer radius, everything had been sealed off. Now the 3 surviving superhumans were trapped inside. Wang Diep examined the information in the stack of letters, marveling at how Trong Tu Luong had prepared in advance. A series of names were listed: Trong Ham and 2 others. He thought the abilities of these 3 superhumans complemented each other, making them suitable to form a squad. But he looked vacantly at the car. The strength of the demon must also be very strong. After all the members that Trong Tu Luong arranged were down to just 3. He smirked slightly, assessing that old fox. He must be in pain, wanting to log out. The courier sitting beside him noticed his sudden smile. He immediately asked, "What are you laughing at?" His expression returned to normal, serious, and cold. He leaned against the window, not answering, but instead asking back, "Is there any information about the demon?" The courier, hearing his question, replied fearfully, "All information about the demon." "I don't know," he asked. The courier explained to Wang Diep that the internal state was always without signal, unable to contact the superhumans. Until half an hour ago, there was a weak signal that barely came through, and the signal only transmitted for less than 10 seconds. The content was just a message, a tense space with modern machinery where several men were working in the control room. Suddenly, a large screen displayed a series of signals. An unusual sound echoed as a large red distress message appeared alongside the names Trung Ham Liu and Tien Vung, all marked as alive. The vehicle stopped at the side of the emergency in the shopping mall. The security guard stood to block the crowd that had gathered tightly in front of the black car that drove straight inside. The courier stepped out, opened the door, and said, "I can only bring you this far. Surviving is up to you." He stepped out of the car seriously. He coldly thanked Mr. Vung and confidently walked inside, his expression darkening as his brows knitted together. Looking inside, he thought that the second-level demon realm could easily block normal signals, making it hard to send out information. The shopping mall was dim and desolate with only one shadow present. He criticized the demon, fully aware for luring an aid. This event was no simple matter. As he stepped inside, his gaze suddenly stopped. It seemed he had discovered something. His eyes widened as he looked at the bustling crowd of customers and vendors who were noisy and lively. Vungdiep took out his phone to check the time and saw it was 1:14 a.m. He thought, what a joke, it's still early morning. He observed the situation, noticing people around him, laughing and shopping. His expression grew tense and he thought, why are there so many things that aren't human in the shopping mall? But the faces of those he just passed by became strange. The malicious eyes were directed at him. Vungdiep felt someone watching and turned around. It was still the same crowd shopping normally. The vendor next to him asked, hello, are you looking to buy some clothes? He listened, piecing together the current situation, silently affirming in his mind that this demon wanted him to see a scene of normalcy. He punched the glass display beside him and took out an axe, frustrated. He thought, if you want everything to seem perfect, then fine. He gripped the axe tightly and smashed the glass display next to him, shouting, I'll ruin your hard work. The salesgirl behind him still smiled and asked, hello, are you looking to buy some clothes? His face twisted in annoyance as he exhaled sharply. He coldly laughed and snapped at the salesgirl. Why don't you buy some clothes? Her head fell heavily to the ground, her eyes still glaring at him. The customers from before turned back to look at him, their eyes bloodshot, the sound of moaning repeating, why? He turned back, holding the axe, and asked, aren't we playing anymore? He laughed wickedly and said, but I'm still playing. A surge of red energy mixed with black appeared behind him. With one hand, he lightly brushed a few drops of syrup from his chin, while holding the axe with the other, walking toward them with a grim expression. Vungdiep spoke up. Are you sure you want to stop me? The crowd that had surrounded him instinctively parted to the sides upon hearing this. He placed the axe on his shoulder, satisfied, and said, ha ha, demons with intelligence seem easier to deal with. Vungdiep continued, these stiff corpses move very slowly. There was basically nothing to worry about. Suddenly he realized something and thought, wait, the demon just now impersonated Trungham. Its actions were no different from a normal person. He looked at the demons around him, a bit stunned. Did their slow and sluggish appearance deceive him? At that moment, something was gradually approaching him. A woman in a red dress quietly walked over, raising her hand to strangle him. Vungdiep immediately reacted, sensing the danger, and swiftly swung the axe, aiming for the woman's head. Instantly, the control mechanism seemed to turn into a coconut shell, rolling on the ground, but the woman's head remained unharmed. She laughed. Almost got you, he. Just then, another demon took advantage of his distraction and lunged at him, but unfortunately it was immediately turned into a Gojo version, only able to scream. Moreover, the axe was like chopping wood, landing right on another demon's head. Vungdiep pulled the axe out, and syrup splattered everywhere as the demons lay sprawled on the floor. After finishing them all off, he let out a sigh of relief, thinking about the way he had dealt with the demons here. Each time he struck, he aimed for their heads. Choosing to disguise themselves to sneakily attack from behind, he looked at the figures of other demons standing in the distance. The essential condition for demons to take a life was to do so without being detected. Grabbing their heads, he looked at the demons wandering around as if harmless. At this moment, he finally realized how terrifying it was. This kind of ability in the shopping mall would easily and quietly claim lives. The team of supernatural beings had not perished in vain. Vungdiep immediately jumped high and said, now, do you have any other tricks? He swung the axe down, splitting a demon in half like separating two chopsticks. Not stopping there, he continued using the axe to transform other demons into Iranian and Gojo versions, the axe swinging back and forth continuously. By the time he finished, syrup from the axe flowed down to the ground, and the bodies of the demons lay scattered. Vungdiep suddenly looked toward the door, turning back to see someone emerging from behind it. A girl with short green hair appeared. She softly asked him, is this the headquarters? After asking that, she immediately introduced herself. My name is Liu Tian, a logistics type supernatural being awakened at the throat. Vungdiep looked at them with some suspicion, thinking they might be demons. Although this name was in the provided information, he still didn't believe it. He pondered for a moment, then pointed the axe at her, demanding, prove yourself a bit. Liu Tian knew he didn't trust her. Even though this name was mentioned in the information provided, he still didn't believe it. He looked at her thoughtfully for a moment, then pointed the axe at her, demanding that she prove herself, a little knowing that he didn't trust her. Immediately, he presented the message as evidence, claiming that the rescue message was sent by me. The more Liu Tian spoke, the more he exposed the flaws in this hellish level. How could she send a message to this country? Liu Tian pointed at the wound on her neck, indicating the truth. My ability can affect the magnetic field for a short time, but the price is very high. The wound on my throat is a result of forcibly breaking through the magnetic field of hell left behind after confirming that they were my people. Vungdiep immediately ordered a quick strike. Vungkung, who had been silent, finally spoke up in confusion. Quick strike. Look at the corpses we just destroyed. Let me explain to them. This demon can control minds and change its appearance to disguise itself as someone else. The simplest way to find it is to decapitate all the corpses here, Vungdiep said as he smashed the glass of the emergency cabinet. There are no more usable corpses. The demon can no longer hide. Vungkung listened and completely obeyed. Only Trungham hesitated, thinking this was too cruel. In this emergency situation, he didn't have time to deal with this. Coldly, he said, "Anyone who agrees, come with me. If not, stay here and log out." Vunkung decisively smashed the glass of the emergency cabinet just like him. He looked towards Liu Tian. The two were united in their determination to follow Vung Diep. After making the decision, they quickly entered the battle. A corpse that resembled a human began to move, but before it could do anything else, Liu Tian and Trungham swung their axes, chopping it into 3 pieces. Vunkung, though injured, still fought with all his might, following Vunkung's instructions. Decapitating each corpse, suddenly Vunkung felt a strange force behind him. Vung Diep also sensed the danger, turned around to observe, and after confirming the threat, decisively severed the head from the corpse. Vung Diep stood there, observing the battlefield. After the recent situation, he warned everyone to be careful. Their positions, if not noted, could become sensitive spots for the corpses to launch sneak attacks. Just after he spoke, a female corpse approached them. Vunkung felt somewhat relieved upon seeing it. He wiped his sweat and said, "This is the last corpse." Without waiting for anyone to act, Vunkung prepared to attack. He glided past the corpse like a gust of wind, swiftly severing its head. After finishing, Vunkung breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, it was done. The other two couldn't help but exclaim in joy, "Great!" Suddenly, Vung Diep coldly spoke up. "Who said this is the last corpse?" Hearing Vung Diep say that, Trungham jumped up in anger to retort, "Based on what should we trust you? From the beginning, you've been leading him, coaxing him, shifting all suspicion onto Vung Diep. First you told us to work for you, and now you say we have a problem. Right now, I suspect the one with the problem is you." Vunkung and Liu Tian were taken aback by his attitude tension enveloping the atmosphere. Suddenly, Vung Diep laughed mockingly. "Ha ha, you've grown up quickly." He immediately asked, "What do you mean?" Just after he finished that sentence, Vung Diep glided past Trungham like a breeze. It turned out he had struck him once. Vung Diep looked down on him. Of course, he was complimenting him. At this point, Trungham still spoke defiantly, manipulating everyone. He's the demon run. Just after saying that, he collapsed in confusion, blood splattering onto Vung Diep's face. He looked towards them and said meaningfully, "If your judgment ability is only this much, I will doubt your ability to read people." Hearing him insult like that, Vunkung was somewhat surprised. He explained, "We've never heard of Trung Tulung's name at the shopping center." "I believe you." Meanwhile, Liu Tian sighed in frustration. Vung Diep looked at the person lying flat among the blood and mocked, "Are you still interested in acting now?" Only now did Trungham reveal his true face. He twisted his neck 180 degrees towards them and cursed, "All of you are despicable." Vung Diep stepped directly on him, mocking, "Are you threatening me? No more tools for substitution. You're just a useless piece of trash." Not allowing Trungham to retort, he took out his rope. After that, Vung Diep controlled the rope to bind him, tightening it with each command. Trungham screamed in pain. After defeating the last demon, Liu Tian and Vunkung breathed a sigh of relief, the tense atmosphere dissipating. Vung Diep dragged the demon's corpse away in joy. Job's done, time to clock out. Liu Tian helped the injured Vunkung outside, watching Vung Diep's departing figure, unable to help but ponder how this massacre of nearly all our team was resolved so simply by him. In fact, from beginning to end, we didn't even know what his ability was. Looking at Vung Diep's retreating back, I thought to myself, what kind of divine being is this? Everyone outside saw him step out and began to chatter cautiously. At that moment, Vung Diep had a vestige of victory on him, proving the fierce battle he had just fought. The crowd shouted loudly, "The demon is out!" He approached and reported to a blond man, "I am Vung Diep from the logistics department. The supernatural event has been resolved. I have syrup on me. You can go deal with the aftermath now." Upon hearing this, the man was overjoyed and signaled to lift the alert. The others were all happy, responding that they had worked hard finally. Vung Diep carried the demon Trungham toward the man and reminded him to keep an eye on the demon, making sure he didn't slip out of sight as the man's team entered the building. Upon seeing the bodies scattered across the floor, everyone was horrified by the gruesome fate. It was all just corpses, and I felt like throwing up. Vung Diep, however, remained calm after the battle, sipping his drink, when suddenly his phone rang from his waist. He picked up the phone. "Hello?" And on the other end was Trung Tu, smiling as he asked, "How's it going?" Seeing Trung Tu call him so quickly, Vung Diep thought to himself that this old fox was really sharp. He sat in the car and answered Trung Tu's question. "Yeah, there are still some survivors, Vunkung and Liu Tian." Hearing this, he immediately paled. "What, this is the capital I've accumulated over a year," Vung Diep continued. "Vunkung has enough IQ and is cautious enough to be a decent shield. As for Liu Tian, I hesitate when talking about her." Regarding Liu Tian, Vung Diep said, "This person has a strong desire to survive and might give up everything for it." Hearing this, Trung Tu could only cover his face and respond, "Got it. I'll report the specific situation up the chain. Finally, we have a way to compete for the squad." The two sides hung up, and Vung Diep thought to himself that after laying everything bare with Trung Tu, his attitude changed too quickly. He used to be a Talon, but this time he didn't even say a word before struggling. Indeed, kindness is reserved for strangers. Finally, Vung Diep returned home. He laid back on the sofa and suddenly sensed a presence in the house. Next, Vung Diep bent down to open the drawer in front of him, revealing the golden bow and arrows he had obtained. He held the bow in his hand and gently said, "I spent a lot of money to get this bow back then. It's exquisitely crafted and extremely powerful. If you don't want to get hit by an arrow..." He aimed his bow at one side of the room and declared in a booming voice, "Come out now!" The room remained silent, and suddenly a knife flew towards him. At that moment, the figure in the shadows appeared. It was Juham. She spoke, "So you found me out." With a bullet-like gaze, Vung Diep questioned her. "Do you want to kill me?" She replied. "I told you I would eliminate you." "Yes." Both of them had put away their weapons. Juham continued, "Aren't you curious how I got in here?" Hearing her say that, Vung Diep thought to himself, "Did I leave the window open? Am I losing my mind?" He replied to Juham flatly, "If there's nothing else, you can leave now." Juham moved closer to him with a calculating look and said, "Let's get to the point. Are you going to join me or not?" Hearing Juham say that, Vung Diep questioned, "Your physical capabilities might not be bad, so why take the risk to join me?" Juham then replied, "I have very secret information about a good item at a graveyard 10 miles east of the city." Hearing this, Vung Diep still felt uneasy and asked, "Is this information true or false? Moreover, how do we split it?" Juham answered, "What if it's the Loi Kwa?" This was the first time Vung Diep had heard that name. Juham explained, "The awakened generation of the Buddha kingdom is different from ordinary people. The Buddha kingdom emphasizes cultivating the body, making it extremely strong. As long as one part awakens, the body will develop comprehensively. Their bodies even emit golden light, which has a natural suppression effect on demons, and the Loyam Kwa can help humans achieve that. Cultivating the body is like the Buddha clan." After learning about the value of the Loyam Kwa, Vung Diep wondered, how do we split one Loyam Kwa? He thought that normally Loyam Kwa grows near the Buddha kingdom and is occasionally sold for an exorbitant price. He looked at Chuham, wondering if she would be kind enough to share it with him. Chuham arrogantly crossed her arms and looked at him. "What I want is not the Loyam Kwa. The information I have is exclusive. There's a strange demon in a graveyard with a string of beads and a Loyam Kwa on it. The image of a demon in human form, dressed in rags with claws on its hands, wearing a string of beads and a Loyam Kwa in its pocket, grinning wickedly against the backdrop of terrifying thunder and lightning appeared." Chuham pointed to her head and firmly said, "The beads can enhance mental power. That's what I need." She explained to him, "But fake mental power isn't suitable for solitary actions. I always encounter unreliable people, so I always hold back." Vung Diep cautiously furrowed his brow and asked her, "So you're sure I won't resort to any tricks, huh?" Suddenly she leaned closer, hugging his arm tightly, laughing as she replied, "Even a handful of seeds wouldn't work on me, let alone you, a mind power user. How could you not sense the danger?" He stood there looking at her as if wanting to push her away. "I wouldn't dare let a lovely girl like you go to the underworld," he said, pulling his hand away from her coldly, adding, "We'll meet at the city gate at 10 tomorrow morning." At that moment, at the shopping mall scene, people were dragging out several corpses of the demons. The stench made everyone cover their noses as the statistician nervously wrote down the information saying 382 heads. How strong must one's psychological quality be to be able to chop off so many heads like that? In front of him lay 10 heads stacked on top of each other. Looking back at the report in his hand about Wang Ye, he admired this Wang Ye. It seemed he was about to make a name for himself. Behind him, someone was running over with a piece of paper shouting, "Captain, the staff has compiled a number of corpses." There are 381 headless corpses, he wondered. 381. He held 2 sheets of data for comparison, asking the captain, "Are you sure there's no mistake?" The guy next to him replied, "No mistake. Everyone has checked several times already." "We've never had a mistake before." His expression turned serious as he observed the paper, thinking, based on Wang Chang's and Liu Tian's words, perhaps each head corresponds to one person. But why was there one corpse missing? He quickly took out his phone and called, "Notify headquarters. I have important information to report." Switching to another scene, someone was ringing the doorbell outside. Wang Ye immediately opened the door, surprised to see the person in front of him. The staff member from before now looked terrified, holding a rope in his hand, saying to Wang Ye, "This rope you left earlier, the captain told me to bring it here." As he took it back, the staff member immediately ran off. Wang Ye's expression darkened as he watched him run, wondering why this guy was so strange. "Am I that scary?" He frowned, picking up the phone. On the other end, Chuhan said, "Brother, let's go. I'm waiting for you at the city gate. You left the rope behind. Everything is ready, so let's go." Wang Ye walked down the deserted street with a woman's shadow hiding behind him. Observing him, the face revealed was that of a ghost woman, smiling smugly. Switching scenes to the capital city, the sky was pitch black at the city gate, with the crowd growing thicker. Chuhan had been waiting for a long time, so she complained about her brother. "You're so slow." Wang Ye walked calmly, not forgetting to tell her, "Let's go." After checking and confirming the information Tong Kiem told him, "I've confirmed the identity. Take your time." As they walked in for a while, he asked Chuhan, "Do you have a map?" She casually and confidently replied, "The cemetery, it's easy to find." Time passed slowly but tensely. An hour later, a bald head suddenly appeared on the floor, its eyes rolled back, lying there alone, looking very scary. They also discovered a headless demon sitting nearby. He slowly walked over to observe and spoke up. "I can hardly believe you just went out for an hour and already encountered 3 demons." She chuckled softly and awkwardly replied, "Isn't that quite convenient?" Moreover, up until now, he still hadn't used his special ability. Wang Ye's gaze drifted far ahead, and he couldn't help but feel melancholic, thinking that although the process was quite difficult, they had finally arrived. Then he fumbled around looking for clues and asked her, "So where exactly is that demon?" Chuhan paused for a few seconds, gently stroked her chin, and thoughtfully said, "Perhaps it's in the center of the cemetery." Without saying anything more, Wang Ye coldly took a step forward and walked away. Chuhan could only silently follow behind, but as they stood among the old decaying tombs, his curiosity was piqued. He bent down gently, picking up a piece of broken stone from a tombstone. After inspecting the tombs, Wang Ye was shocked to realize that the material of the tombstones was similar to those in the outskirts of the fateful city. Why was it related to that place? Then he stood up and in a disappointed tone said, "Is there no more energy left?" Suddenly he thought to himself, broken stones are what suppress demons, but how many have escaped outside now? Vung turned to look at Chuham and decisively declared that in 1 hour, regardless of whether they found the demon carrying the thunderfruit or not. "Then I will leave," she replied helplessly. "I know there's nothing I can do and I'm wasting my energy again." As he finished speaking, she raised her hand to her lips and began to cast a spell. In an instant, a mystical magic circle appeared beneath Chuham's feet, with waves of shimmering light slowly spreading out. Soon after, she felt a signal coming through. "So hurry and let me know. I found it. It's 300 meters to the south." Hearing this, Vung didn't hesitate and immediately dashed off. She hadn't even reacted yet, standing there in shock as she watched his back as he ventured deeper into the graveyard. At that moment, he suddenly noticed a strange figure. Standing in a corner over there, Chuham was neither surprised nor scared. Instead, she calmly chanted her spell. A glowing sword flew straight towards the red-eyed figure under her control. Just as expected, a loud thud echoed from the face of that ability user. Vung was taken aback and exclaimed, feeling a wave of unease rise within him as he froze and thought. Most demons rely on human bodies to act, but how could a human body be so powerful? He instinctively tensed up, fixating his gaze on the figure, silently speculating about the awakened individual. However, that thought was quickly dismissed. Vung carefully considered and recognized that this outfit was clearly from before Vinda. Could it be that there were ability users before Vinda? Suddenly the demon let out a loud scream. Vung realized that it hadn't activated its rules yet. Taking advantage of this moment, he threw a piece of rope to Chuham, who was hovering in midair. Receiving the rope, Chuham immediately understood his intention. The two of them, without prior agreement, thought to quickly tie it up. She grasped the rope and flew towards the demon while Vung quickly followed behind her. Soon after, both of them had tied up the demon. Chuham smiled triumphantly, pulling the rope taut, along with Vung, to restrain the demon. He turned back to ask her, "Did we succeed? That's great." Chuham looked at the tightly bound demon and cheerfully praised, "This rope of yours is amazing." However, the two could only hold it for a moment before the demon began to move and was looking for a way to escape the rope. Seeing the danger, Vung immediately shouted, "Get back!" He anxiously wondered if the rope had lost its effectiveness. Just as Vung thought, his rope had indeed lost its effectiveness, becoming loose and allowing the demon to easily break free. Chuham, seeing this, felt extremely tense and questioned why her body couldn't move anymore. Chuham's inability to move was due to the glowing ring on the demon's hand. She had also noticed it, but it was too late. The demon immediately struck her on the forehead and retracted its hand, hitting her. Blood gushed from the deep wound on Chuham's forehead. Her expression was one of shock as she could only let out a gasp before her body collapsed to the ground. Vung anxiously watched the demon approach Chuham. Along with her scream, "Ah!" When he looked down at the ground, he discovered a shadow trying to lift Chuham's body. Just as he saw the shadow pull out a knife intending to stab Chuham, he quickly activated his ability to save her. Vung angrily shouted, "Damn it!" He couldn't avoid using his ability. Frowning, he extended his hand forward, using his power to suppress the demon. Finally, when the demon was immobilized, Vung quickly picked up Chuham and ran. He looked at her expressionless face and irritably said, "How foolish, why didn't you?" Vung seemed to sense something and turned to look at the demon, smiling behind him, wondering if this demon was binding the shadow. After a moment of hesitation, he gritted his teeth and pulled out a knife. With one hand still holding Chuham, he used the other to decisively stab the shadow on the ground. The demon let out a painful wail. It stared intently at Vung, who was carrying Chuham. She was astonished by the scene before her and anxiously turned to ask, "Vung, are you okay?" He held his chest with one hand, panting, thinking that the side effects of the bone knife were too strong. Vung leaned on his thigh to stand up and said, "Now's not the time for idle chatter. We need to think of a way to deal with it. If we can't resolve this, we have to abandon this plan." Chuham immediately replied, "Got it." She began to harness her power and glowing threads appeared around her body, floating up. The threads were controlled to wrap around the demon. Chuham immediately said, "Hurry and get the item. I can only suppress it for 10 seconds. Instantly, he ran towards the demon, trembling in front of it. He immediately lunged forward, reaching into the pocket of the demon's clothing. The glowing object resembling a pear was pulled out, and at the same time, a string of beads was placed on the demon's hand. He saw something protruding from the demon's pants pocket and thought, "What is this?" Vung immediately went to take the small piece of paper out of the demon's pocket. Chuham called out from behind, "Hurry up, I can't hold on much longer." He quickly turned his head and ran back, still remembering to reply, "Got it." When he reached the limit of his strength, Chuham grew weaker and lost his balance. He immediately ran and made a gentle leap to catch Chuham, as she fell safely, landing with her in his arms. The demon clasped its hands together and screamed as the shadow beneath it began to stretch and move toward the two of them. Vung Diep, seeing the dark shadow approaching, jumped up while still carrying her to avoid it. He cleverly threw a doll like a weeble down below. As the doll hit the ground, it immediately burst into flames, the bright red fire flickering in the darkness. The demon stood still, watching the fire grow larger. In front of him, he could only stand there dumbfounded, not knowing what to do next. Just then, the female ghost appeared from behind, placing a hand on the demon's shoulder. Caught off guard, the demon was tightly grabbed by her. She pulled the dark shadow from the ground in response to the demon's pitiful screams. She grasped the shadow at its feet, pulling it up as if holding two strings. The female ghost's eyes widened, her pupils shrinking, revealing her white, empty eyes. The demon's tongue hung out in a terrifying manner, and it immediately fell to the ground before her, its eyes darkening as something flickered and flew out from the demon in the desolate forest. Vung Diep and Chu Ham struggled to regulate their breathing. She wiped the sweat streaming down her face and spoke with difficulty. "Little brother, I knew you wouldn't abandon me." He frowned at her, glaring as he warned, "Honestly, I really want to take your life." The intelligence system of hers, suddenly she spread her hand toward him and made a decisive request. "Don't mention my information anymore. Didn't you already get the thunder fruit and the prayer beads? Hand the prayer beads over to me. You're very cooperative, so just give it to me. Not only that, but you also advised me to rest a bit before heading back. It might not be too easy." As his slender hand released the string of prayer beads, they fell into Chu Ham's hands. For a moment, a bit of syrup fell to the ground for no apparent reason. Vung Diep felt a bit uncomfortable, assessing that this place was indeed desolate, not somewhere just anyone could come. She was very friendly, raising her middle finger in front of him, as if to scold him. At least those who tried their best had the right to say this. On the way, even his special abilities he couldn't bear to use. "Are you afraid of meeting the king of hell?" However, in response to her was his cold, indifferent laughter. "Ha." Chu Ham couldn't help but let out a sigh, filled with frustration as the scene shifted to daytime in the bustling city. Vung Diep eagerly grabbed her hand and casually teased, "All right, let's cooperate happily. This is our first collaboration, and I hope it will be the last." Without waiting for her to respond, he decisively turned and left. "Right, I've sealed the window tightly, so give up on the idea of sneaking into someone else's house to attack." However, he didn't know that she was now laughing wickedly. Haha. As Vung Diep opened the door, his face showed extreme annoyance. "Can you stop?" He only saw Chu Ham standing opposite him, beaming and waving. "From today onwards, I will be your new neighbor." The corners of his mouth twitched slightly as he thought to himself, "Looks like I should consider moving." The scene shifted again. The female ghost was now standing on the street wearing a strange smile, her eyes wide open, staring into the distance. Suddenly she turned around and calmly walked away. The sound of high heels echoed down the stairs, breaking the silence. Vung Diep, with one hand on his forehead, felt exhausted as if he had just escaped from chains. Finally, that crazy woman Chu Ham was back. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the thunder fruit he had collected from the mission along with her. His eyes sparkled with a mix of delight and anticipation, knowing that everything he had invested would yield results. Bringing the thunder fruit to his mouth, Vung Diep bit down hard. A stream of golden energy enveloped the entire space, spreading out even beyond the door of his room where the female ghost stood. She widened her eyes, unable to believe what was happening. A powerful tremor occurred, intensifying the light, forcing her to quickly dodge to the side. Inside the house, Vung Diep was calmly absorbing the fruit, carefully sensing, is this really the thunder fruit? Unlike the force pouring in from the post office, this flow of energy was relatively gentle, making him unable to help but smile in amazement, clearly feeling his body's capabilities being enhanced. After finishing, he tiredly leaned back on the sofa and sighed. Just then the phone rang, breaking the quiet atmosphere. Trung Tulung was at home, tiredly lying on the couch. He picked up the phone and said, "Hello." Tulung, on the other end, called for him and told Vung Diep to come to the headquarters for a meeting. He hesitated, replying, "Do I really need to attend the logistics department meeting? I'm a bit tired today," he said. He mentioned something important. The headquarters meeting concerns the establishment of a quota team. Vung Diep was surprised upon hearing this. He quickly regained his serious demeanor and stood up to respond. "Wait for me a moment." After Vung Diep finished dressing, he was about to head out. He opened the doorknob, but suddenly Vung Diep frowned when he saw the situation outside, carefully holding a knife and stepping back from the door. At that moment, the figure of the female ghost was standing there waiting for him. He looked at her in a strange state, worried about what was going on. Vung Diep gritted his teeth, muttering, "I must have sealed her in room 4 He looked at the female ghost standing still, quickly calculating in his mind. Could it be that she's still sealed? But why is she appearing in front of my house? Is it because of my consciousness? Vung Diep took out his phone and dialed a number he had a plan. When the phone was answered, he hurriedly said, "Hello, come to my house right away. There's something urgent." Shortly after, Chu Ham slammed the door and stepped outside, shouting, "Vung Diep, what are you doing?" "Do you think I'm your maid?" Vung Diep calmly held a knife, pointing it at the ghost appearing at the door, saying, "It's nothing, I just wanted to introduce the new neighbor to you." Chu Ham was taken aback when she saw the ghost. She quickly stepped back a considerable distance, simultaneously controlling the flying knives above her head, and warned, "Vung Diep, your grandfather dares to deceive me." He silently assessed Chu Ham. Can she really control 5 knives at the same time? Indeed, her power has been enhanced. He replied calmly, "I'm just taking her to meet the new neighbor and say hello." After that, he turned to Chu Ham and waved his hand in greeting. Vung Diep and Chu Ham were both surprised by this scene. He frowned, puzzled, thinking he was just joking about saying hello, but this woman actually followed through. Chu-ham trembled a little. I won't dissect you anymore. Can you tell her not to look at me? Inside, she was terrified. What is this ghost doing? Vungdiep began to step forward, looking at her, still unsure if this woman would obey his command. But the ghost really obeyed. She quickly took a step forward, then turned to stare at Vungdiep, tilting her head slightly, her lifeless gaze fixed on him. Vungdiep kept observing the ghost in front of him. He calculated in his mind that if he could control her, then in a short time, he could definitely gain top combat power in the city. He clenched his fists, worried, thinking further that it might be dangerous. Thinking of this, he paused for a moment and encouraged himself. But why not take a gamble? Vungdiep turned to Chu-ham and said, Chu-ham, can I borrow a hat? Hearing him ask, she looked confused and replied, For what? He pointed at the nail embedded in the ghost's head, explaining, Cover what's on her head. I'm afraid it will scare others. Chu-ham, hearing this, turned around, opened the door, and tossed a pink bunny ear hat into his hands. As he put the hat on the ghost's head, he said, To avoid causing trouble, let's call her Tiao-tu. Thus the owner of apartment 404 in the Heavenly Organization headquarters. With a shiny glass exterior reflecting myriad human shades, Vungdiep led Tiao-tu inside. Observing around, he was surprised to see that no one noticed anything unusual. He thought it was incredible that no one realized he had brought a ghost to the headquarters for a meeting. He smoothly walked through the lobby to a certain room and raised his hand to open the door. Everyone heard the noise and turned to see Vungdiep, who was being closely watched. In the corner of the room, 2 people were sitting on a sofa. Upon seeing him, a girl with pink hair cheerfully stood up and waved, calling, Come sit over here. Vungdiep followed the call, guessing that if nothing unexpected happened, these were the 2 members that Trung Tulung had arranged for him to get close to. It wouldn't be a problem. After thinking this, he led Tiao-tu closer to those 2 to interact. The girl with the short pink hair looked at Tiao-tu in surprise and asked, Who is this? Vungdiep sat down on the sofa and upon hearing the question replied, This is my friend. However, in his heart, he thought, I hope this friend doesn't wake up and kill me. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from outside. Oh, it's Chu-ham. He turned to the source of the voice and saw her proudly standing at the door, her hair wrapped in a bun. Seeing that everyone had noticed her, she smiled and slowly walked in. Vungdiep exclaimed, That crazy woman is here. A young man in a bright red tie with slicked back hair and handsome features walked over, holding a glass of wine, and greeted Chu-ham, long time no see. He expected a greeting in return to open up a pleasant conversation. But life is not a dream. She didn't even bother to lift her eyelids to look at him, continuing to walk over to where Vungdiep was sitting and called his name Vungdiep. The person ignored by Chu-ham saw this scene and angrily crushed the wine glass. Ignoring Vungdiep's lack of response, she sat down next to him and looked at Tiao-tu, saying, Hi, I've thought it through. Even though you have her, I will still persist and not give up. Everyone in the room was eavesdropping, stunned at what she said, while Vungchit felt exasperated, thinking, This crazy woman. Doesn't she know that saying this will lead to misunderstandings? The young man in the red tie, hearing Chu-ham, became even more irritated. He angrily pointed at Vungdiep and shouted, Get out, I want to sit here. A male member of Trung Tulung's group came over and whispered in Vungdiep's ear, This guy's name is Tovan Kim. He's a level 2 awakened ability user and a strong candidate for the team leader position this time. Vungdiep frowned upon hearing this, commenting, really hot-headed, then ordered Tiao-tu, Tiao-tu, I don't want to hear him talk anymore. Upon hearing this, Tiao-tu's eyes immediately sharpened glowing red as she turned to Tovan Kim and raised her hand. He didn't expect Vungdiep to say that, his brows furrowed in shock, but before he could react, a swift slap from Tiao-tu left him with a swollen cheek, spitting syrup in pain as he fell down. Just one swing had knocked the strong contender for team leader out cold. Vungchit was also caught off guard by this situation, his lips curled into a stiff smile as he sighed. Originally just wanting to test Tiao-tu's abilities, he didn't expect her to strike so fiercely. Tovan Kim, struggling, knelt down, putting all his strength into his ankles, his eyes blazing with anger as he charged at Tiao-tu. She simply raised her hand to counter his attack, sending him flying backward immediately. Vungdiep silently witnessed everything, sighing inwardly, thinking that this foolish guy should just stop talking. Van Kim, bruised and battered, still arrogantly shouted, I'll deal with Tiao-tu, and kicked straight at her. The impact hit him squarely in the face, knocking him out cold. After that, Tiao-tu quietly stepped back to stand behind Vungdiep. He turned to look at Chu-ham, who was frowning in discomfort, saying, Next time, use me as a shield. Be careful, just like that guy, a bald man observed from afar, and suddenly spoke up. Are you confident in facing that woman? The man sitting next to him frowned slightly, looking wary. Her physical abilities are stronger than mine. The woman laughed heartily. Ha! Even the famous diamond has to submit sometimes. Suddenly, the door separating everyone from the secret meeting room slowly opened. Li Ting-ha and the imposing minister stepped out while Vung Kyung quietly reported every detail to him. This old man is the leader of our heavenly organization. Li Ting-ha heard that he was also a supernatural being, his strength unclear. His gaze swept over the 2 older men, one of whom laughed heartily. That's Minister Manhwa from the intelligence department. Don't be fooled by his friendly demeanor. He's quite cunning. The man with the birthmark is Minister To Trung Tan. Tovan Kim, the one you just knocked out, is his son. He continued to look straight at them and asked, And that woman? She's a demon, a woman with neatly tied blonde hair standing upright. Her name is Trung-Hyu, responsible for the Heavenly Organization's experimental projects, known as a genius with a 02. She spends every day in the lab, but her experimental targets are all demon kings. I'll lay out everything I know. Most of the demons we suppress are sent to the lab. Many have heard the cries of the weeping demons from the lab, but her sacrifices are immense. The light curtain of our city is her masterpiece. If not for her, our city might be no different from Wasteland. His expression suddenly turned serious, his gaze hardening as he said, "Speaking of Wasteland, it seems I've forgotten something. I found a note earlier on the demon's body in the Wasteland, but I got too busy and forgot to check." Everyone had gathered around the round table. It was time. "Let's start the meeting." His eyes were as cold as ice, carefully assessing the situation. Although everyone qualified to attend this conference were experts, forming a team of many supernatural beings who weren't interested. Vungdiep's face showed no emotion as he silently pondered. Except for a few important team leader positions, most people have already arranged things quietly. Suddenly, To Chung-Tan's assistant leaned in to whisper something in his ear. He immediately changed his expression, his voice deep, as he ordered, "Wake Van Kim up." The assistant quickly rushed over to shake Van Kim. Wake up, wake up." Oh, Tutu's eyelids fluttered, her expression wavering as she rushed to Van Kim and slapped him hard across the face. Seeing this, Vungdiep could only shake his head in exasperation, forgetting to change his orders for her. A murderous gaze shot from across the room. To Chung-Tan's voice was sharp. "Are you provoking me?" Tulung spoke up. "My subordinate doesn't need your guidance." To Chung-Tan retorted, "If I remember correctly, this woman isn't part of the Heavenly Organization. What right does she have to appear at this high-level meeting? I forgot now she's a part of our logistics department." He was left speechless, angrily exclaiming, "You're all just a bunch of useless people." After hearing this, he slammed the table in anger. On Hoa, the logistics department lost 138 people while handling supernatural beings. 10 supernatural beings dealt with over 5 D-level incidents, 2 C-level, and 1 B-level. I created their achievements with blood. Their spirits are watching from above. How can you criticize us? Vungdiep thought to himself, this old fox is quite the actor. The logistics department was empty because a third of the people had already left. Those 138 were personally sent to the front lines by him, and a third were reinforcements from other departments. After that, Tulung expressed his disdain for the cowardly fat man. "Because of the influence of the intelligence organization, you have let loose quite a few demons. How do you think my organization will respond to that? At least your logistics team has no right to speak up. After all, everyone knows your support team is just a bunch of useless people." Hearing this, he slammed the table in anger. The logistics team sacrificed 130 people while handling the anomalies. 10 ability users dealt with over 5 D-level incidents, 2 C-level, and 1 B-level. The achievements of their spirit warriors created from blood are all up in the sky looking down. How could you possibly read that? Wang Ye thought to himself that this old fox was acting quite convincingly. The logistics team was empty because 3/10 of the people had already left. Those 138 were personally sent to the front lines by him, while 3/10 were reinforcements from other departments. Then Ziliang expressed his disdain for that cowardly fat man. On Hua, refusing to back down, retorted at the shameless old man. Meanwhile, Trong-Tan lay back on the couch, clearly dissatisfied. It was evident that people at the ministerial level were all sly old foxes. He shouted, "I've disliked you for a long time. If you're not satisfied, let's settle this with a fight. I accept your challenge. Bring it on, you fatso. Open your eyes wide and watch, or you won't know where my fist will land." Hearing the commotion, Jiahua slowly spoke up. The old man shouted, "Stop. If you want to fight, go outside. No need to lose face. Right now, everyone is scheming against each other. What tricks will Trong Xiliang use to break this stalemate? Clearly, the action department is the front line. At the very least, they should have a quota for a small team." Looking at Trong Tan, it was obvious he wanted both, but the logistics department had less priority than intelligence. Trong Tan spoke up. "Trong Xiliang, this matter concerns my subordinates." "Vungdiep, you hit my son? Shouldn't you offer an explanation?" He raised an eyebrow. "How do you want to explain this?" He replied, "Our action team hasn't had anyone beaten without a clear explanation. If Vungdiep can hold on to Kim Kang for 10 minutes, we can consider this as if nothing happened." Ziliang is quite arrogant. Is that all? "You're not underestimating this tall, clumsy young man, are you?" Trong Tan mocked. "If Minister Trong values his subordinates this much, then let them have a go." Ziliang raised an eyebrow. "You want an explanation? No problem. But what if Vungdiep from our logistics wins?" He scoffed. "If Kim Kang loses, I'll give up half of the action department's resources." After hearing this, Vungdiep's face turned extremely ugly. He slammed the table and agreed. A gentleman's word is his bond. Immediately after Ziliang cheered, "Vungdiep, take him down." Instantly, he stood up with a cold demeanor. Kim Kang shouted, "Vungdiep, I want you to fight." Vungdiep chuckled lightly. This guy isn't stupid. He doesn't want to clash with a little fourth, does he? He spoke up. "Come on, let's finish this quickly. I'm relatively tired today." Immediately, a large amount of killing intent radiated from him. Kim Kang yelled, "Without that woman, what skills do you have left?" Vungdiep thought indifferently. Is this strong body a result of brain awakening? Unlike Chuham, he doesn't have psychic power, but can he enhance his body? No wonder he's a master of the action team. Then he charged straight at him like a gust of wind. Vungdiep calmly commented, "Spirit awakening and enhancement, huh?" These two awakening positions seem quite balanced. However, it looks like the strength has increased, but the IQ seems to have dropped. He reached out to catch him, mocking, "I really can't tell if this is good or bad." Instantly, Vungdiep used a bit of force and threw him away with a heavy toss, shocking everyone in the room. All eyes widened in disbelief. What? Their faces clearly showed disbelief. How could this be? Kim Kang was knocked far away, his back hitting the wall. Vungdiep approached and stomped on his chest, causing him to cough up blood. Vungdiep's face displayed the coldness of a strong man. People whispered, the title of Demon King is truly not just for show. A terrifying existence like Kim Kang can be easily subdued by Vungdiep. Ziliang smiled smugly inside. "I found a treasure. We need to invest more resources in Vungdiep," someone whispered. Wasn't he just using his special ability? He spoke up. "Now can we discuss the main issue?" After a while, the meeting room was packed with people. Trong Tan said, "My limit is 2 quotas. On Hua mocked 2, so you guys are bullying the intelligence department. I have no one." He squinted. "Do you have a prejudice against me? Do you really think Kim Kang is the trump card of the action team?" Vungdiep thought, this Trong Tan feels scarier than Kim Kang. The expression of the little fourth carried a mysterious air. Jiahua shouted, "Enough! Each of the 3 departments gets 1 quota. Let's decide like this and adjourn." The old man shot a knowing glance at Trong Tan. After a while, he stood up and left in frustration. Then Ziliang looked at Onhua's smug smile after the meeting. In Trong Ziliang's office, he was curious about this person Vungdiep and immediately reached out to pull the hat off the little fourth's head. Ziliang was startled and jumped up. "This is your introduction. This is a demon, a very strong demon, but the copper nail in the middle of her forehead was put there by me, and then she suddenly appeared at my door. Moreover, she listens to my commands." He frowned. "This is very dangerous." Vungdiep replied, "Being a special ability user is already fraught with danger. If that's the case, having one more person around isn't a problem. Anyway, danger and benefits coexist. It's just that the helplessness of the dead can only be spoken about. It's up to you. The documents have already secured the quota for the squad. According to the current plan from the Heavenly Organization in the upcoming period, resources will be allocated unconditionally to the 3 squads. As agreed, I will present it to you to be the captain, and the current member is Liu Tianwang Chang. As for the other 2, I need to think more. You remember correctly. Does the captain have level A intelligence authority? Zilong? Do you really not understand why you are so obsessed with this level? Intelligence authority. Perhaps there's more behind the current allocation. In the capital city, there are 3 districts, Donghua Shiku and Zhongnai. The 3 squads correspond to these 3 districts and resources will be distributed based on performance. However, I feel this matter is not that simple. Perhaps the performance is related to the plans ahead. Wang Ye seems to have a keen sense. This old fox's intuition is sharp. I only realized it after my rebirth. Zhang Zilong has already guessed AIE 9 out of 100 based on speculation. Liu Tian started a conversation. "From now on, I should call you Captain Wang." You replied, "Captain Zhang is looking for you. There might be something going on. I'll head out now." Wang Chang commented that our captain, although sometimes silent, understands everything in his heart. Later, when you get home, you're exhausted and finally you can rest a bit. Wang Ye lay on the soft bed drifting into sleep. Meanwhile, the little one stood still beside the chair. "Wang Ye?" She slowly took long steps toward the chair, her face cold, sitting with an extremely serious demeanor. At the same time, the darkness she created slowly crept toward your room. The little one's eyes glowed with a terrifying red light as her shadow gradually infiltrated Wang Ye's bedroom, merging the gloomy shadows with the light. After a while, she finished her probing and shrank back. The little one sat upright, retracting the darkness. She was mimicking your posture from earlier in Wang Ye's bedroom, finally quieting down. "So, little one?" The next day, the sky was clear and sunlight illuminated every path. You glanced and wondered what she was doing in the living room last night. "Is this the level A information that Zhang Zilong provided to me?" Sure enough, there are no records of those scoundrels waiting to die in the intelligence department. Wang Ye looked outside and realized it. You sat quietly studying the piece of paper in your hand. Wang Ye was surprised. It was that mysterious outer city cemetery, the graveyard, and the 10 tombs I encountered in the wasteland. What could be the connection between these things? What secrets are hidden beneath these 6 graves? Moreover, they have been dead for a long time. Could it be that the clothes found on the body of the ability user really indicate that ability users existed in the past? That night in Wang Ye's bedroom, you were sound asleep, when suddenly you woke up with wide open eyes. Wang Ye stood up, pressing close to listen to the sounds outside the door, and then decided to slowly step outside. Wang Ye saw the little one leaving. Where was she going? The outer city cemetery. Why was she coming here? You were on high alert, careful of that strange old man. Suddenly, Wang Ye woke up in a panic. What you saw on the table was an oil lamp casting dark shadows. Wang Ye glanced toward the mysterious grave in the cemetery. You hid behind a tree, assessing silently. Was it over? Then Wang Ye saw the little one slowly coming out. Looking at her figure, you contemplated returning first, pretending not to know. Then Wang Ye followed that shadow home. You looked at the shadow, frowning. Am I seeing things? Wang Ye heard a noise. The little one turned back. You closed the door, pondering what this little one was all about. At this moment, she was pushing the door open, and Wang Ye lay on the bed thinking that he could only wait until that day to see what would happen. A few days later at midnight, Vungdiep was deep in thought. The 9 mailboxes were still open, which suggested that Tutu didn't pose too much of a threat. Wasn't that the candle holder in the wooden house at the cemetery? It turned out that wooden house was a grave. Moreover, this mission had a specific time frame, which meant that the old man probably wasn't at the outskirts of the cemetery. Vungyep picked up the oil lamp, disgusted by the smell of decay. After a while, he took the oil lamp to his desk. Vungyep's hand created a spark as he slowly examined the lamp. He lamented how unfortunate it was to miss the props from the post office. With a light smile, he thought it would be better to leave a little for himself. Although he didn't know what these candles were for, given the old man's terrifying power, what he had on him was probably not simple. Exhausted, Vungyep lay down on the bed, suddenly transported to a strange space. He was surprised. Wasn't he at home? What was going on? Vungyep caught sight of a mysterious man with a pale complexion staring at him. He jolted awake from the bizarre dream he had last night, sitting up and patting his head. Thank goodness it was just a dream. Vungyep pondered over the paper he had written on earlier. It seemed there was a secret beneath grave number 6 at the outskirts cemetery. If the old man only returned at midnight tonight was the chance. He thought to himself that night he would head to that mysterious abandoned house. Vungyep realized it was indeed the same type. The candles in the holder had burned out, so he needed to replenish them. There was still an hour until midnight, plenty of time. If danger appeared, he would light this lamp. The old man might show some leniency since he was a ghost, right? The water stain on the gravestone had grown larger. Did that mean the cemetery was more dangerous? Suddenly he felt tense. The second time he would meet the ghost was only 3 months away. It truly was an unusual energy, leading to terrifying things in the cemetery. Gradually awakening after a long time, Vungyep stopped at grave number 6. Suddenly he saw a corpse and was stunned. Did that mean the owner of grave number 6 had been dealt with by Tutu? But what could cause the walking corpse, sealed like Tutu, to come here at midnight? Then his eyes lit up as he noticed a detailed piece of paper left with information. Could this be referring to the internal organs of the owner of grave number 6? Vungyep quickly jumped into the corpse's pit. He used his hands to pull the deceased's clothing aside for inspection and pulled out a strange piece of equipment. He had never seen anything like this before. He felt uneasy. It was almost midnight. Vungyep quickly climbed back up to the surface and left that place. He used all his strength to run quickly ahead. At that moment, the lamp in the house lit up, sparks flying everywhere. The ghostly man appeared again with that light, creating a shocking encounter between Vungyep and the old ghost. He tried to force a smile. Vungyep raised the oil lamp in front of him, seeing the old ghost standing still. He was surprised. Didn't he recognize him? The two stood there motionless, staring at each other for a long time. Vungyep guessed that he wanted him to come in, and then he would step into the old man's haunted house. Vungyep noticed the lamp on the table had gone out. At that moment, eerie sounds echoed outside the cemetery, and large water stains appeared on the graves. The old ghost sensed something was wrong. He was startled to see the old man had moved outside. Vungyep exclaimed in confusion. When did he go out? The old ghost slowly spoke, his voice shaky, ordering him to light the lamp. Upon hearing this, Vungyep immediately moved quickly. In his haste, his actions became frantic, and in the critical moment, he couldn't get the lighter to ignite the lamp. Outside, the eerie sounds grew louder. He was confused as to why things were malfunctioning right now. When the lighter finally sparked, Vungyep was overjoyed. It's lit. He quickly glanced at the chaotic scene outside. Suddenly, those noises gradually diminished. Vungyep was taken aback. Had everything stopped? Everything came to a halt. Vungyep leaned against the wall, relieved. He looked out the window and saw the old man was nowhere to be found. At that moment, the old ghost was staring up at the moon in the sky when suddenly a hand with sharp black nails shot up. The old man then emitted a powerful force, suppressing the hand of the corpse, which trembled and gradually retracted, completely disappearing back into the cold ground. As that hand returned to the earth, the old ghost turned away. Inside the house, Vungyep tried to look outside, breathing a sigh of relief. This candlelight seemed to have a calming effect. Did the previous layer of candle wax I scraped off with a knife affect the cemetery? However, there was always a mysterious post office revealing the truth. At that moment, Vungyep looked up and saw the old man's face. He was stunned and stammered. He turned back. If nothing's wrong, then I'll be on my way. Vungyep ran off, wondering if he would be punished if the old man noticed the candle had burned down a notch. As night fell, a chill enveloped the graveyard. The old man sat in the house next door, the oil lamp illuminating his face, which gradually faded away. He smiled mysteriously, and then that house slowly disappeared into the darkness. Finally, a strange event occurred. The number 1 appeared on the door as Vungyep walked down the street, sighing that it was finally over. Luckily, this mission was a complete success. I didn't expect this candle could suppress the entire outer city graveyard. I secretly left a bit of wax behind. If used wisely, it might have miraculous effects. He returned to his private house when suddenly Vungyep heard a loud noise. He drew his knife. Things had been too lively around his home lately. Vungyep felt annoyed, wondering if his house had turned into a supermarket. He saw the silhouette of Tutu sitting on a chair. She slowly approached, and Vungyep noticed a wound on her face, surprising him. What could have hurt her given Tutu's strength? Who could have injured her? Vungyep stepped closer to her, his eyes scanning the surroundings. Was the intruder still here? Vungyep looked around and concluded that it seemed the intruder had already left. After all, I'm considered a master and Tutu is a demon. Why do people always dare to come to my house? He hurriedly lifted the floorboard to check the secret place. Vung Diep was relieved. Thankfully, nothing was missing. There weren't many people I interacted with. Who was watching me? Was it the person that Trung Tu Lung sent? He was smarter, and besides he was currently cooperating with me. He wouldn't do something like this. Suddenly he frowned. Among the remaining people, Vung Diep quickly sat at his desk and began to look up information. There were no supernatural events reported, and the investigation into the outer city graveyard was cancelled. He pondered. So that old man still had some reasoning left. It was just a bit unclear. Suddenly his eyes widened in surprise. The image on the screen was of Kitu Hin's grave. The portrait in the photo shocked Vung Diep. Wasn't that Chu Ham? The intelligence report on Kitu Hin stated that from 1976 to 1990, he was buried in the outer city graveyard. Vung Diep pondered. Clearly Kitu Hin was the one before Vinda. But back then, only wealthy families had the right to wear a kipao based on her gentle demeanor and elegance. The Kitu Hin in their photo was clearly different from the villagers. This woman was definitely not an ordinary villager. She had a strange illness. The documents didn't record any information about that wealthy old man. Now even that crazy woman had countless secrets. Shortly after, he went outside to the house next door and knocked on the door. Chu Ham came out. "Little brother, why did you come to find me?" He replied, "It seems there was a thief at my house earlier. I wanted to ask if you heard any noise." She responded, "Not at all. I was studying that string of beads." Vung Diep turned and left, responding with a dismissive sigh. Chu Ham shouted in anger, "That practical man!" After she closed the door, her whole body was trembling. Chu Ham glanced at the bleeding wound on her chest, brushing off the remaining dust with her hand. She lay back on the couch, lamenting whether it would leave a scar. Her body was unexpectedly mutated. The wounds gradually healed. At this moment, he sat analyzing the documents which stated that Kitu Hin had no children and didn't have a twin sister yet. She died and came back to life. What happened to make her personality so bizarre? From her tone, earlier it was clear she was injured and lacked breath, sneaking into my house to fight with Tiotu. Could it really be her? Vung Diep sat in the room, rubbing his tired head. He heard a noise and wondered if the delivery service only showed up at midnight. Vung Diep glanced at Tiotu, thinking if there was any special reason. He quickly placed his hand on the doorknob and pushed it open. Vung Diep stepped out and saw a box of items left there containing a sword. He was curious if this was the reward this time. Vung Diep opened it and a blue light emanated from within. The knife was quick and there was also a note left that said it could sever demons. He thought that while demons couldn't be destroyed, they could be separated, which would weaken their power. Could it be that this thing also existed after being separated? This severed arm, if complete, would be terrifying beyond measure. But what kind of person can be cut down? The side effects of this cursed blade are even greater than those of a bone saw that extracts the body's energy equivalent to hastening the death of a supernatural user. Perhaps only by awakening their entire body can they use it without concern. Wang Ye looked at the notes in astonishment. It was 5 days before the deadline. Along with the second eternal night, the mission from the post office has also become shorter, hasn't it? Perhaps the outside world is a bit more chaotic than I imagined. Meanwhile, Little Four watched as Wang Ye sat down in a chair and commented that things at home are already chaotic enough. Living with a demon. Little Four's neighbor Chu Han was suspected to be someone who died many years ago, and every time he left the house, it seems there is always someone coming to cause trouble at home. What if I move? Will this strange wooden door appear at my new house? Moreover, even if moving can ensure a better situation than the current one at that moment, Chu Han was slowly waking up from her stupor. She sat up and touched the wound on her chest, smiling contentedly. The wound has completely healed. After a while, inside their building, he heard someone on the phone say, "Wang Ye, the new team member, I finally feel good about you." Wang Ye agreed. In his heart, he wondered if this old fox has been working too hard lately. Starting work early in the morning, facing Chu Han, who was brushing her teeth, he struck up a conversation. "Little brother, what a coincidence I heard today is the day to register the team. Zhang Ziliang also told me to come over. Wait for me a bit." Wang Ye pondered. Last night her voice clearly sounded breathless, but today she seemed to have recovered to normal. "Did I mishear?" Then she closed the door in front of him. After a while, Chu Han changed clothes and stepped out. "Little brother, let's go." She placed a finger on her lips. "Wang Ye, are you curious if today is the day of the royal sister?" Then they went out of the apartment together. Little Four glanced at Chu Han with a scrutinizing look, showing no goodwill. On the 21st floor of the headquarters building, Wang Ye thought there were clearly more employees than last time. The work efficiency is very high. It seems Zhang Ziliang has been continuously recruiting. Hao Ming spoke up. "President, you're here," Lin Lan added. "Good morning, Captain Ziliang." Sitting in a chair, Ziliang complained, "Wang Ye, you're late." He replied, making Chu Han smile awkwardly. "Who told me I have a good neighbor?" He spoke up. "All right, we all understand each other well. Now let me take you to meet some new colleagues. This is Li Hongtian, a two-time awakened user specializing in brain and blood." He stepped forward to shake hands with Wang Ye. "The Demon King, I've heard of you for a long time." In his heart, he wondered when he had gained such a nickname. Yang Shen brought the news. If everyone has no issues, consider the team officially established. Ziliang suggested, "Let's congratulate a bit." Wang Ye spoke, "I think we should gather some resources first. After all, upgrading our strength can lead to a better life." He agreed. "That's right. Just now I wanted to test your will a bit." "Very good. The specially made shotguns with gold bullets and fog bullets can temporarily form a fog of the demon realm to block the harmful rules of demons. The flashlight in the demon realm can shine further. He analyzed that they were all good items. The shotgun, with gold bullets, surely isn't much stronger than his crossbow, but the fog bullets, which seemed ordinary, are actually life-saving artifacts. Wang Ye reached out to take the item and was surprised. This flashlight contained a bright red eye. Ziliang explained, "This is made from the eye of a demon in the laboratory." He exclaimed, "Is this a part of a demon? Could it be that someone in the laboratory can handle demons?" Hongtian added, "Indeed, we can't eliminate demons, but currently the laboratory has a way to resolve demons to a certain extent. Zhang is a genius, or perhaps a madman. Her experiments are daring. Most of them fail, but there are a few successful works." Wang Ye silently assessed this person. A two-time awakened user with a deep understanding of the laboratory's background, he must have the qualifications to be a team leader in another city. After all, he joined my battle team for what purpose Ziliang instructed. These weapons are all strategic weapons, very valuable. Except for the team from Shanjing City, other areas currently do not qualify. Gold bullets are limited. Each person gets 2 fog bullets and 1 flashlight. He emphasized, "All right, now let's talk about something else. The laboratory has made new progress in management. Other areas currently have no right to gold bullets. The fog bullets are limited to 2 per person, and each person gets 1 flashlight." He emphasized, "All right, now let's talk about something else. The laboratory has made new progress in management. The risk of awakening a second time is high with a death rate of 30. Each squad can receive a free awakening quota, so Tulung is asking everyone if they want to sign up." Everyone in the room fell silent. The atmosphere was tense until Wungkung broke the silence. "I'm signing up." Wungyep tried to stop him, saying this was a matter of life and death. He replied, "I've been awakened for over a year now. My physical condition is deteriorating. If I don't awaken a second time, I might not last more than a month." Wungkung looked at his arm and concluded it was impossible to survive much longer. Tulung handed a piece of paper to the laboratory for them to collect supplies. He replied, "Understood." Wungkung reassured him, "I'll be fine, Captain. Don't worry." At that moment, Liu Tian spoke up loudly, "I'm signing up too." You might wonder why. In Wungkung's heart, it was because of her physical condition that she could only take risks. But from what he knew, Liu Tian's condition wasn't serious enough to take such a risk. She explained, "I don't hope to be protected by others. I also want to prove my worth. Plus, only by continuously improving myself can I keep up with Team 5 and keep up with you, right?" Liu Tian asked Minister Trung to certify her. Ju Ham playfully nudged Wungyip. "Your little brother is quite popular, huh?" He sighed. Liu Tian has it tough too. Her parents died in a supernatural event, and it's hard for her to survive in this wretched world. Hong Tian curiously asked, "Captain, aren't you going to give it a try?" He declined. "No need. Awakening is about channeling energy in the body to promote the evolution of a certain part. But my body doesn't have this energy. My awakening depends on items." Wungyip reminded her. "What about you? I remember you've only awakened once." Chu Ham turned away. "Little sister, you still have a long life ahead. No rush." He thought to himself, "Long life? I've had enough of that." Wungyip spoke up. "If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave." Tulung agreed. "This time you are responsible for the Eastern Flower area. The office location has been chosen, and the address will be sent separately. As for those going to the laboratory, I hope you survive." Then everyone left the office together. Dung Sam suggested, "Captain, I want to awaken a second time." He raised an eyebrow. Are you tired of living? Or is it that you need money at home and are thinking of ways to earn more?" He was determined. Wungyip could easily handle him now. He could feel it. His strength had increased again, and Wungyip wasn't the strongest among the supernatural beings. Fortunately, he had become his bodyguard, allowing him to live a comfortable life. But in this monstrous world, strength is everything. If there really comes a day when I sacrifice myself and can't save you, that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Tulung agreed. "All right, I'll certify you. Survive and come back. Without you by my side, I'm not used to it. Plus, I don't like new bodyguards digging into my secrets." Dung Sam scratched his head. "Got it. After all, you're a cold-blooded person." He glanced at his figure, waving goodbye. "I'm off now." Then the door slammed shut with a loud bang. Tulung slowly stood up. "That's right, I'm a cold-blooded person." He angrily cursed this monstrous world. She spoke up. "Hello, my name is Trung Hiu." Wungyip nodded. "I know, I've heard you're looking for me." Trung Hiu said bluntly, "I want to dissect you. What are the conditions?" In his heart, he cursed. This person is crazy. Wungyip curiously asked, "May I ask why?" She replied, "I checked and found that you have no energy but can still awaken. I'm very curious. This is an unprecedented exception. If something can be extracted that allows all of humanity to awaken, then it would upgrade the survival space of humanity." He frowned. "I can't tell her about the situation at the temporary post. Agreed for now." Wungyip turned away. "Because I touched a certain plant, that's why I awakened. Not because of my body." Chung Hyo was excited. "What kind of plant? What does it look like?" He left, waving goodbye. "That's all?" Only Chu Ham teased, "Now someone wants to dissect you." The light gradually dimmed, the scene slowly narrowed as night fell. Hong Tian seemed mysterious. He held his backpack's side and released the tension. Hong Tian was delighted. "That old man isn't here. I can relax now." He took steps towards the desolate graves. Then Hong Tian stopped in front of a gloomy grave. He stood there carefully assessing whether the chosen place was suitable. Hong Tien bent down, rummaging through the items in his bag. He pulled out a piece of fresh meat, blood still dripping, and then Hong Tien threw it right in front of the grave. The meat hit the cold ground. Immediately the stone tablet trembled, making eerie sounds. Something strange happened. The meat was slowly being absorbed and a stream of dark energy gradually entered the grave's crevice. Hong Tien saw this and was thrilled. Success. He inhaled the dark substance through his nose. The sensation was incredible as each stream of dark essence flowed in, causing Hong Tien's body to tremble. His eyes lit up with a sinister glow. Hong Tien clenched his fist in excitement. The effect was very clear, and then the grave cracked open, the dark energy gradually dissipating. As the light gradually illuminated Vung Diep's building, he sat in contemplation. This was found on the corpse of the owner of grave number 6, who seemed to have been dealt with by Tutu. The internal organs of the corpse were hollow, but the fruit was left behind. I had checked all the intelligence documents within my authority, but there were no records of this type of fruit. Vung Diep felt the urge every time he picked up this fruit. The body suddenly craved it intensely. This was truly strange. Is this thing a blessing or a curse? You coldly tossed that strange fruit onto the cold ground, and Wang Ye judged that in this bizarre world, if you were cowardly, you would never escape death compared to dying quietly in a supernatural event. It's better to take your own chance at survival. You quickly smiled with delight at that thought, and then Wang Ye ate that fruit. All along you had relied on courage to survive, but suddenly a strange green smoke escaped your mouth. Wang Ye trembled all over, lying on the floor as his body slowly cracked open. He was confused. Was the energy from this fruit refining his body? Its energy was expelling the supernatural abilities he had awakened, and with his current physical capacity, he still couldn't control this energy. At that moment, Xiao Si slowly approached him. Suddenly the door swung open with a loud noise, and the person who entered was Chu Han. Two girls faced each other with great intensity, and she immediately charged forward in anger. Wanting to attack instinctively, Chu Han emitted a calm light, commanding her to back off. She stated her action. "I'm saving Wang Ye." But Xiao Si seemed not to hear, and stood in front of him. Chu Han shouted, truly unsure if she wanted him dead or not. After that, she angrily left, slamming the door hard. She quickly turned her head to glance at Wang Ye's frail body, which had visible wounds revealing the flesh and blood inside. Suddenly a miracle occurred. Wang Ye's body trembled and slowly healed. He tried to sit up, letting out a tired sigh. Wang Ye got up before he fainted, clearly feeling his body couldn't take it anymore. That terrifying energy was ready to kill him. He pushed his hands against the ground to gain momentum and stood up. Wang Ye pondered, but didn't know why. Another strange energy entered his body, and the two sources of energy slowly merged, becoming gentle. His capacity was truly vast. Relying on his current physical ability, he couldn't stop this second awakening. However, his supernatural ability in his hands was also gone. Whether this change was good or bad was still uncertain. 2 days later, he lay on the couch thinking and checking. He roughly understood the strength of his body now. Suddenly the phone rang. Wang Ye answered. "What's up?" Minister Zhang spoke. "The city of Lan'an is about to be destroyed." He was shocked upon hearing this. In his previous life's memories, the city of Lan'an had always been peaceful even after experiencing supernatural events, but it had never faced a threat of destruction. Could it be that he remembered it wrong in this chaotic memory? Or maybe he hadn't really been reborn. All of this was just his imagination. Wang Ye walked over to look at the bustling city across from him. "Are you listening?" He felt uneasy. Could his actions have created a butterfly effect leading to these events? He quickly searched for information about Lan'an, which had erupted into a level S terror event on the 5th day. Lan'an had experienced a level S supernatural event. Demons outside the city spread throughout, showing half of the people with only their brains thrown into the river. The city fell into a lockdown state with no news coming out, and they quickly dispatched a team of supernatural beings for support. He fell into deep thought while reading that information. Wang Ye spoke. "My emotions were a bit off earlier. Sorry, Minister Zhang, this is truly unbelievable. If not handled well, it will cause panic." But it was still unclear what the situation was. The headquarters couldn't send all the teams of supernatural beings to rescue. If they misjudged the danger of that demon, it could lead to the team's demise, and other cities wouldn't be safe either. He asked, "So the headquarters wants to give up on Lan'an?" He replied, "We still have to save it, but we can't do it with full force because there are still many people who need our protection." After their conversation, Wang Ye hung up and fell into contemplation. It seemed the headquarters probably wouldn't send him out. That's right, after all, he was just a supernatural being with a bit of strength. Even if he joined the team facing the terrifying level of destruction, he would be nothing. Suddenly, Wang Ye noticed something strange. A purple light appeared. He worried about the mission. There were only 2 days left. Now it was just past noon, and the wooden door appeared again. Wang Ye reached out to touch the mysterious doorknob. He quickly stepped in. After a moment's hesitation, he saw a piece of paper and an oil lamp on the table. The content read, "Lan'an City find the source of the disaster. This temporary mission can be declined." He thought, a temporary mission. The events in Lan'an have far exceeded the post office's predictions. If he could decline, it meant this mission was indeed very dangerous. But with his current life, the worst outcome would just be death. And successfully obtaining the basic authority from the post office was truly something to look forward to. Wang Ye quickly changed his clothes, preparing for a new journey. He took out a vial of red liquid and some other items, then quickly placed them into his backpack. He also brought along a sword he received from the previous mission. Xiaoxi watched excitedly as Wang Ye finished preparing. You both quickly left the house. Wang Diep reached out to open the car door, feeling a mix of disbelief and resignation about his fate. How will this mail truck get back to the post office? The vehicle roared to life, smoke billowing as it sped down the long road, sunlight pouring in. At that moment, everything was in Chu Ham's view, and she turned to leave. Preparing to act on her own plan, Chu Ham stood at the door of his house. The timing was perfect. She quickly gathered her energy, creating a green light that burst open the door. Chu Ham felt a familiar energy. Is that thing in here? Suddenly, a shadow appeared behind her. Chu Ham's eyes darkened with tension as she saw the figure of a little demon resembling Vung Diep. Furious, Chu Ham shouted, "Why is it this thing?" The little demon glided past her lifeless and sat on the couch, mimicking his usual demeanor. It used its hands to turn on the TV like a normal person. It radiated a chilling dark energy, and suddenly that strange phenomenon began to shift silently. Meanwhile, Vung Diep had arrived in Laman City, the sky filled with dark clouds and thunder. Below, the situation was dire. A support team was anxiously trying to get in. "We can't enter," someone shouted in frustration. What do you mean there's no military support?" Innocent civilians were crying out. My family is still inside, Vung Diep thought, realizing that his presence in Laman City would surely be known to Trung Tulung. Rather than face questions later, he decided to take the initiative. "I'm Vung Diep," he announced. The team leader of the logistics unit from Tung Kin recognized him. "I can vouch for him. I met Vung Diep at the headquarters meeting. His strength is profound and unpredictable." At that moment, Vung Diep spotted someone he had previously met at the meeting, seemingly a high-ranking member of Tianto. "Hello, I'm Lu. Did Trung Tulung send you?" Vung Diep replied. "No, I came to see for myself." Lu smiled, clearly intrigued by this. He complained, "I knew it. That old fox Trung Tulung is about to let Laman be destroyed. He didn't even send anyone, that cold-blooded guy. When I return, I will definitely report him." Vung Diep pondered. Perhaps Lu had previously communicated with Trung Tulung and was rejected based on his own stance, making any argument unreasonable. Lu admitted, "He might be right. Right now we can't enter Laman City. This cursed realm is too strong. Anyone who tries to enter will just come back out. It's hard to explain. Just your coming here shows your determination. But Laman City may truly be beyond saving now." Vung Diep asserted, "I can get inside." Lu was taken aback. "Are you sure?" "I guarantee it. That's why I'm here." He hesitated. "Can you take someone in with you?" Vung Diep thought, although he could leave that person on the mail truck for a while before bringing them in, doing so would reveal his biggest secret. The most important thing was, most people here were branches of Tianto sent from various cities, not top-tier combatants. With their strength, getting caught up in this supernatural event would mean certain death. Ultimately, even if they entered the city, they wouldn't be able to do anything. He spoke up to refuse. "I can only go in alone. If I die, tell them to retreat." This felt like the biggest gamble since his rebirth. Success would grant him access to the post office's primary resources. Failure would mean death. After realizing Tulung's helplessness, Vung Diep looked at his reflection in the car's glass door. Tulung sighed as he gazed at the scenery outside while Vung Diep's vehicle entered Lam An City. Inside, the scene was chaotic with corpses scattered everywhere. Those who could still move had transformed into demons. He pondered as he walked down the street, seemingly no longer seeing any people. The vehicle came to a stop. It seemed the car was expressing resistance. Vung Diep stopped and slowly stepped out, complaining, "Can't this car avoid blood?" Suddenly, the engine of the car began to rev. Vung Diep saw the headlights turn on automatically, and he realized his escape route had vanished. At that moment, demons began to approach, charging fiercely toward Vung Diep. He calmly used his sword to slash them into pieces, quickly staining the ground with blood, creating a horrifying scene. Vung Diep coldly wielded his sword, droplets of blood falling. Suddenly, he took down a demon. Its eyes glowed with a fierce red light as it slowly moved closer to Vung Diep, then leaped at him. Unfortunately, it was caught by Tutu, but the little demon growled in frustration in its own language. "Are you saying that this speed and strength is at the level of a low-level demon? Even though it can't harm me, if there are a lot of them, it could be a real problem. Plus, we still can't determine if there are higher-level demons out there." Wang Ye coldly ordered her to deal with it immediately. The little demon was taken down on the spot and tossed aside like a stone. It blinked, watching your back along with the little fourth Wang Ye as they observed the situation together. You heard a strange noise and immediately ordered, "Come out." The villagers stepped forward, asking, "Are you here to save us? Hurry, get me out of here. I don't want to die." Wang Ye shouted, "Shut up. Are you trying to lure more demons out here? I advise you to go back to hiding. If you're lucky, you might survive." They were furious. "What do you mean? Why don't you get us out? Didn't you come to save us?" You coldly replied, "In this world, relying on others is not as good as relying on yourself." After that, Wang Ye turned and left them behind. Suddenly, a gun was pulled from their bag and a bullet was fired at your back but fell to the ground. It hit the ground with a loud noise and bounced away. Wang Ye turned back, giving them a murderous glare. The villagers tensed up, gritting their teeth as they looked at you. Wang Ye spoke in a flat tone. "Why did you shoot me?" The person replied, "Didn't you say relying on others is not as good as relying on yourself? Get me out of here or I'll shoot you. There has to be a way to get me out, right?" The others agreed. Yes, you must get us out. If not, we'll deal with you. You praised, you learn quickly. Now I'll teach you another lesson, save yourself without harming others. Then Wang Ye rushed forward and snatched the gun from his hand. You angrily emphasized, I'm much stronger than you. The most basic knowledge of supernatural phenomena should have been taught to you already. In dangerous situations, you must not make a sound, or the demons will track you down. In despair, the villagers knelt down watching Wang Ye's silhouette. At that moment, the demons gradually emerged from the mist. You walked while despising the ignorant who never live long. Laban called out from above, Do you want to go to the branch of the heavenly organization? It's very dangerous there right now. Upon hearing this, Wang Ye became alert and turned to look. He jumped down from above and approached you saying, I'm Labang, the captain of the Heavenly Organization team in Laman City. I'm a second-level awakener with the ability to see the truth. Yes, Wang Ye responded, Labang. I've read about you. What happened at the branch here? He replied, 3 minutes ago, the branch was attacked. Most people are hiding in the safe room. You wondered and probed, what about the demon at that branch? Labang opposed, I didn't go in. But there are some low-level demons left that are even scarier. When the incident happened, I was outside on patrol, so I wasn't trapped. I wanted to get closer to the city gate to wait for reinforcements. As a result, he saw you. Wang Ye was surprised. The safe room? In the headquarters of the Heavenly Organization, there's also a room made of gold that won't be affected by demons. Hiding in a safe room like that means there's no danger to life. Yes, you said, so you want me to go with you to save the people at the branch? Wang Ye was curious about what was in the suitcase behind him. He explained, it's a mysterious weapon, a supernatural item. After hearing that, you became even more alert. The image of that suitcase carried a mysterious feeling. Wang Ye spoke, I understand, but I refuse to go with you to the branch. Labang was startled and asked again, Are you sure you refuse? You said I sensed something threatening my life on you after eating that fruit. Your body's abilities became much stronger, and along with that, your perception increased significantly. Wang Ye insisted, let's go a little forth. Labang pondered, he's just a second-level awakener. How can he have such power? At that moment, he watched your silhouette then. Labang heard the sound of the mysterious suitcase and threw a prepared talisman onto it. It quickly hit the top of the suitcase, and immediately the suitcase returned to a peaceful state, no longer moving. Finally, Labang placed it on his shoulder and walked in the opposite direction of Wang Ye, watching as Labang gradually faded into the mist. Your footsteps followed the direction of your toes. Wang Ye sighed. Indeed, there's something strange about that suitcase. What is that paper? You stared at Labang, pondering continuously as you stepped into the thick mist. Vinan rummaged through something in his bag, mumbling, I don't believe I can hack this time. Then he took out something to light a flame, and the candle burst into bright light in his hand. The cold, hazy mist dissipated, revealing a door. He slowly stepped inside with a few wandering demons around. Vin An cautiously moved, feeling lucky to still be wearing this outfit. Otherwise, he would be disturbed by these demons. His left hand still held the lit candle, while his other hand fumbled into his clothes to find the compass. He mumbled to himself, deciding which direction to go. Watching the compass spin in his hand, an interesting scene was about to welcome the misty sky of towering cities, a strangely quiet space. Wang Ye hid behind a nearby wall, witnessing everything that just happened. He thought to himself, Labang's physical strength is very strong. Your eyes kept following his every move. All the low-level demons on the road were easily dealt with by him. Labang turned and left his thoughts heavy. If he hadn't gone to the branch right now, you would have been at Lam and City Hospital. When the door opened, Labang stepped in without hesitation, and suddenly a swarm of demons rushed out. They intended to attack you, but Labang just smiled lightly, pulled out a golden talisman, and placed the black box on the ground. The glowing talisman stuck to them, made them freeze in place, clearly terrified as Labang walked boldly forward. The demons automatically parted to the sides. Not far away, Wang Diep observed everything with curiosity, wondering what could be inside that suitcase to frighten the demons so much. His eyes were filled with suspicion, and behind Wang Diep was another girl, Vien An, who gradually followed the compass's guidance, smiling smugly, finally found by the Taoist. He passed through the demons effortlessly. Vien An thought to herself, hoping to make up for the losses from before. Wang Diep, still hidden in the shadows, saw Vien An and wondered if she could block the demon's perception. Was it that shroud? He chuckled secretly, pleased at the thought of robbing it unexpectedly, encountering someone who gifted equipment. Wang Diep suddenly launched a stealthy attack from behind. Your hand struck the back of Vien An's neck, causing him to collapse from your blow. Wang Diep slowly pulled Lei away, who was unconscious. You were wearing Vien An's clothes, which was a bit amusing. Wang Diep gently commanded, let's go, Tiu Tu. Vien An finally opened his eyes. He cursed, who ambushed me? Where's my stuff? Who's there? Come out. I swear I'll smash your head. Countless people were transforming into zombies. Wang Diep grimaced at the sight. This was happening in a large, gloomy hospital shrouded by a pitch-black sky. In front of Tiu Tu and Wang Diep, there was blood everywhere. Along with the baby zombie, you solemnly assessed the number of second-level demon servants. It seemed that the third-level demon servants weren't limited to just this one. You feared this demon could create even more terrifying beings like a serial killer. It couldn't be that simple. Suddenly, Vung Diep halted his thoughts, his gaze fixated ahead. In front of him was a corpse hanging by the neck, its flesh a vivid red. He said, "This is the body of a psychic." Vung Diep and Teotu slowly ascended the stairs. After a few hours, Vin An opened his eyes wide, seeing the zombies doing something strange. Wasn't this the guy who ambushed him? Suddenly, the zombie let out a loud scream. What the hell is that? The zombie was approaching Vin An, intending to attack him. Vin An, terrified, ran away quickly. Oh my god. Vung Diep was running because the distorted human creature was chasing him. He grinned wickedly. "Let's see your treasure, Dao Jia." A demonic creature radiating dark energy began to attack, clinging tightly to the belly of the distorted human. Its leader started to scream in anger, and the demonic head unleashed sharp attacks wrapping around the human's body. Its mouth bit into the human's neck as if it wanted to eat him. In an instant, the human collapsed to the ground, blood pooling beneath him. Vung Diep retracted the demon, scoffing. "You don't know your limits." He began to move further up the stairs. In a large hospital, under a fiery red sky, Vung Diep and Teotu were in a fighting stance. His gaze was sharp, yet he couldn't see any demon servants on the second floor. It seemed there was a heartbeat echoing, luring him in sync with his own. He looked at Teotu and hastily commanded, "Teotu, go." She used her strength to smash her elbow against the door, which finally swung open. In front of them stood a person, his face dark and somewhat unpleasant. The floor was littered with unconscious nurses with pitch-black eyes, while a doctor with dark eyes was still conscious, holding a knife and a red heart. Vung Diep and Teotu locked eyes with the deformed doctor. The doctor's face gradually changed expression, his black pupils glaring. He began to roar with powerful energy, and the nurses lying on the floor slowly stood up. They charged at Vung Diep and Teotu. Surrounding Teotu's body was a surge of red energy. Teotu stepped forward, decisively releasing a red aura that spread throughout the room. The demon screamed in pain as the red energy flooded in. Teotu stared coldly at the zombie doctor. The zombie doctor screamed frantically, his murky gaze fixed on Teotu. Her eyes glowed bright red, a wicked smile appearing as she extended her claws toward the zombie doctor. She clawed fiercely at him, his face contorting in agony. She lunged forward, tearing his body into pieces. He howled in despair while Teotu stood silently before the corpse, a sinister smile on her lips. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes flashing with a crazed delight. Outside, Vung Diep looked worriedly at Teotu. Is her seal about to break? Teotu's eyes sparkled when she saw the heart. She picked it up and opened her empty chest, slowly bringing the heart closer. The heart gradually slipped into her chest. As if some invisible force was at work, the seal on Teotu's head fell away, a beam of light swirling around her body. Teotu's eyes widened in astonishment as her wounds began to heal, the purple light on her body fading away. Her gaze became hollow. Vung Diep watched Teotu from afar, deep in thought. Teotu was one of his strongest trump cards. If she turned against him, the danger would surely rival that of the demon in Laman City. Luckily, he had left some tricks on her. He glanced at the corpses of the demons on the floor, considering the recent situation. It seemed that all the psychics in Laman City killed by demons had turned into third-level demon servants. His gaze deepened. Right now in this city, who knows how many third-level demon servants there are? Vung Diep panicked when he heard a shout from behind. The one in the shroud is Lao Tu. Did you pull any tricks behind my back? He glanced at the person standing behind him. Vung Diep turned to face Vin An, worried that this guy was here to reclaim his dignity. He hesitated, considering his current state. Gritting his teeth, he looked annoyed and then asked Vin An, "Are you here to kill me?" Vin An calmly waved his hand. "Are you crazy? Killing for a treasure, is everyone in this city like that now?" Vung Diep looked at Vin An in disbelief. He continued, "But you have to return my stuff. Otherwise, I'll show you the power of Dao Jia." Vung Diep glared at Vin An, who was smug in front of him. "Don't you think that in today's world, lives are as cheap as grass? Killing people for treasures has become so normal, right? But this guy has a pile of treasures, yet is incredibly naive about the underworld. How has someone like him survived until now? He's from the Taoist sect, isn't he?" Vung Diep teased, "What if I don't pay you back?" Vin An mischievously winked. "If you don't pay me back then, I'll just turn my back on you." "Fine, I don't need it anymore." Vung Diep helplessly thought, where did such a fool come from? Vung Diep's gaze suddenly turned sharp and dangerous. In a flash, he lunged at Vin An. Vin An was still confused about what was happening when suddenly he was shoved aside and Vung Diep swung his fist at the approaching demon. Vin An gasped, speechless. Vung Diep delivered a blow that sent the demon flying. He glanced at Vin An, who quickly expressed his gratitude. "Can you give me a few drops of that soul water?" "You took that glass vial from me." Vung Diep swiftly opened his bag and pulled out a bottle. "Is this what you call soul water?" he asked Vin An. Vin An replied, "It can distract the demon's attention. It's quite effective, but sometimes very pricey." Vung Diep glanced at Little Four, who was slowly approaching. He dropped a few drops of soul water onto Little Four's body. Vin An's eyes widened as he looked at Little Four. Suddenly, a massive figure appeared before him. Vin An stared at Little Four in disbelief. Then he jumped up in surprise. Where did this ancestor come from? He rummaged through his body, pulling out a demon-slaying treasure while mumbling, "Heavenly Sovereign Boundless. This is definitely going to die." Vung Diep was astonished as he looked at the knife in Vin An's hand. The blade was similar to his bone-cutting knife. He struggled to recall the image of the bone-cutting knife he had seen before. He smirked at Vin An, thinking, this fool is not as simple as he seems. Vin An suddenly gathered his strength to summon his treasure, which emitted a blinding purple light, as if it had gained energy. The scarecrow suddenly moved, holding a sharp sickle, always ready for battle. Its skull had a demonic grin, and its eyes oozed a terrifying red liquid. The straw figure suddenly sprang into action, darting across the floor. Vin An excitedly pointed at Little Four. Are you scared now? But then he panicked when he saw that Little Four was completely unharmed. He looked fearfully into Little Four's glowing red eyes. Heavenly, sovereign, boundless, this treasure is too powerful. He quickly turned to Wang Diep, who was smirking. Why didn't you tell me sooner that she was sealed? What a waste of the straw man as a substitute for the Taoist. Wang Diep eagerly asked, are you from the Taoist sect? Vin An confirmed, yeah, the outside world is too dangerous. He looked tired and said, the ancestor is right, the outside world is chaotic. Wang Diep cheerfully asked, what's your name? He replied, my name is Vin An. Why? Wang Diep pulled out a stack of papers. I'm a high-ranking member of the Heavenly Ancestor. You can follow me and you'll be completely safe. I can even take you to enjoy the outside world. Vin An's eyes lit up with excitement at the mention of the Taoist sect. He heard some wanderers say that the outside world is amazing, fine wine, luxury cars, beautiful women, all of it is top-notch. Wang Diep was speechless as he looked at Vin An, who was lost in his dreams. Does this guy even know about the Heavenly Ancestor's work permit? He didn't even check. So naive. He gave a thumbs up to Vin An. Trust me, everything they say is true. Though he said that he secretly mocked the words of the wanderers. Can you really believe them? He threw his arm around Vin An. Once we get out of Lin City, I'll treat you to a feast. Vin An nodded eagerly. From now on, I'll follow you. Let's go. Suddenly he hesitated, realizing something was off. I came here to find something. There are many things inside. Did he also sneak in from the outside? Wang Diep suspiciously looked at Vin An. Can you come and go freely in this place? Vin An chuckled. Yeah, it's just a demon realm. Wang Diep excitedly said, brother, there's no rush for other matters. Let's do some work in Lin City. He calmly looked at Vin An, wondering how this kind of treasure could still exist in such chaotic times. Who knows, he might have a terrifying elder behind him. Quick, Vin An, temporarily become my ace. He excitedly threw his arm around Vin An, while Little Four followed behind them. Wang Diep looked at the long-haired girl, calmly asking, Vin An, do you know her? Vin An pointed towards the little ghost and said, let me tell you, this ancestor is really scary. Vin An was flustered, sweating as he recounted to Wang Diep that when he passed by, he discovered the little area had some good stuff, so he went inside. Unfortunately, I just got this vegetable knife. I don't know which guy made you hide in the closet, he continued. Then this ancestor came back, and I couldn't just die locked in a wardrobe, right? Vin An exclaimed loudly, I fought this ancestor for 300 rounds. Finally, casually leaving, Wang Diep was speechless. Sure enough, the other person in room 404 was him. Didn't this kid run away? Then Vin An turned to Wang Diep, puzzled. Right, why is this ancestor following you? Wang Diep glanced back at the girl standing behind him. Oh, I've subdued her. Vin An's eyes widened in surprise. Even the big shot is so calm. Following him could be an extremely accurate choice. Suddenly, light footsteps approached the door. Wang Diep turned back to Vin An, who was still in shock. Pack your things and lean against the wall. Not seeing anyone? Wang Diep sighed in relief. Vin An beside him trembled and fell to the ground. Wang Diep looked out towards the stairs, hearing the sound. Perhaps that person was coming down from the upper floor and had now stopped at the second step. The footsteps continued to echo. Wang Diep held the knife, thoughts creeping into his mind. Perhaps they were just a wall away. After the heavy footsteps, the figure of a person gradually emerged. Vin An looked like he had just gone through a tense battle. He breathed a sigh of relief. Wang Diep raised his hand to cover Vin An's mouth, signaling him to stay quiet. Wang Diep glanced towards the stairs, noticing a slight difference in the sounds of people going up and down. The sound going down was heavy while the sound going up was lighter. The initial heavy sound lightened halfway, then controlled itself back to the original position. Wang Diep cautiously looked out at the person outside. He couldn't deal with him. Had he sensed something unusual on the second floor? But he couldn't determine if there was someone behind the wall. Not wanting to reveal himself, fearing he would fall into a passive position, Vin An anxiously covered his mouth. The corners of Wang Diep's mouth lifted slightly, his sharp gaze mixed with interest. An intriguing opponent. In the quiet hallway, soft footsteps suddenly echoed. Wang Diep gently closed his eyes to sense the faint sounds outside. There was movement. His gaze was sharp. This time, he was really going for it. He slowly lowered the knife, his cold and vigilant eyes directed towards the door, calmly looking at the person standing below Lambang. The man was tall, and suddenly a shout came from behind Diep Hao. He turned around but saw no one. Was he imagining things? Then he turned back and continued walking, kicking up a cloud of dust. Wang Diep leaned against the wall, his face contemplative, his eyes deep, as if pondering something. Vin An saw Wang Diep standing there in a daze and asked, "What are you doing?" Wang Diep replied, "Nothing," then waved his hand at Vin An. "Let's go, hurry," Vin An excitedly said. "Looking for ghosts? No problem, that's easy." He revealed a mischievous smile, biting down hard on his fingertip. A drop of bright red blood fell from his fingertip onto the yellow compass. In the center of the compass, a mystical light emitted where his drop fell, gradually spreading across the entire surface of the compass, rising above. It formed 2 arrows, as if pointing the way for Vinan. He excitedly exclaimed, "I did it!" But this compass only indicated 2 places, seemingly showing 2 ghosts. Vungdiep approached Vinan, looking at the compass, and asked, "Which one is stronger?" Vinan pointed towards the desolate path ahead, where dust was swirling. Vungdiep suddenly stopped thinking. The laboratory. Every city has its own laboratory, researching many strange things inside. Was this ghost coming to the laboratory to find something? He spoke, "Let's go over there first and figure things out." After saying that, Vungdiep and the little ghost slowly moved towards that direction, but all of them walked in an incredibly silent space. At that moment, dark clouds covered the sky. Labang turned and whispered, "Dad will be proud of you, right?" He slowly opened the box he was carrying on his back. A cold face with piercing eyes appeared, a stiff body slowly stepping out of the box. Labang touched his face and said, "Dad, I'm about to succeed." After finishing his sentence, he coldly grabbed the head separated from the body. Holding the head in his hand, he smiled triumphantly, his sharp eyes staring directly at his achievement. Suddenly, other ghosts around began to appear. Labang remained calm, tightly holding the head standing opposite those ghosts. He smirked and said, "Grandpa, your son will make you proud, right?" Labang had prepared a bucket of bright red water for today's meeting. He announced, "Let's start this grand ceremony." Just like that, the energy from the ghost body immediately flew out, gathering into the bucket. Just a moment, the blood flow of the supernatural beings through the energy, neutralization of the Vinyan family, confirms that there's no beautiful woman my Taoist master hasn't encountered. Vungdiep immediately presented a picture of a beautiful girl that left him speechless. Vinan quickly urged him to hurry, saying the Taoist would kill that demon. Then he took me back to the capital, saying he wanted to love my path, the Mao family. She smiled so beautifully and adorably. "Our child will be named Mao Kung." He briefly thought of the name for the child and had already decided. Why is Chuham so alluring? The spirits appeared in the mist. Vungdiep thought he could sense a powerful aura filling the laboratory. While at the entrance, there were 3 supernatural beings, the demon servants. Vin-An pretended to shout loudly, "For the beauty, I'll risk it with you." As soon as he finished, he immediately threw out a weapon. From Vin-An emerged a blood wolf that jumped down to the ground. Suddenly it grew stronger with a muscular body and let out a loud roar. The blood wolf charged at the spirits, slowly tearing them apart, viciously swinging its claws and sending heads flying. After a while, all the spirits were no longer intact. Vungdiep was astonished, thinking this guy is too strong. Vinan chuckled softly, saying, "Mao Kung, or should I say, you really are a treasure boy." At the same time, Labang stood in front of the bucket shouting, "It's your turn, father." After saying that, Labang directly tossed the head into the liquid in the bucket. The face came into contact with the liquid and instantly distorted, slowly sinking out of sight. He then took out another small box. The box contained an eyeball whose owner was unknown. Labang stood there in a mystical space, mumbling, "You've sensed it right, there's also a heart." Labang stood still, glancing as if sensing something. He suddenly opened his eyes wide to observe, then Labang clenched his fist. Sure enough, there's someone in the hospital. Has the heart been dealt with? In the end, Labang had to let go, thinking it was just a low-level heart. Suddenly, strange sounds came from inside the room. Vungdiep frowned, saying, "It's coming." The one inside is not simple. He briefly thought that bringing the treasures from the post office was the right decision. Vungdiep took out a piece of paper and put it into the weapon box he was holding, and the flames in the box instantly blazed. Vinan exclaimed, "This is good stuff." The pure smell of fresh blood felt like human skin. He warned seriously, "Stop joking, that thing is here." The sound from the door grew closer. A headless spirit slowly emerged, the demon eye appearing with a gaunt body and eyes located in its belly, shining bright red. Vungdiep spoke up, "Finally, it has appeared. Tutu, hurry Ving-An, help me." Tutu immediately dashed forward like lightning, throwing out a skull, along with 2 sharp horns, and the eyes in the belly of the demon eye began to function. It kicked out powerfully with its long legs, and the eyes from the belly of the demon eye emitted a bright light, swiftly destroying the skull. Vungdiep shouted angrily, "The Taoist treasure!" But Tutu wasn't ready to give up. She soared high, preparing an attack from above. The demon eye quickly dodged her kick, and he mumbled, "What is this monster in such a hurry to get to?" Tutu seemed to be running out of energy, collapsing to regain her strength. The eyes in the belly of the demon eye kept staring at something. The battle between her and it was still unresolved, and the demon eye appeared to be frightened. When it saw the silhouette of a man standing on the rooftop, it took the opportunity to become careless. Tutu rushed in, using her sharp fingers to attack the demon eye. In an instant, it hurriedly fled. Vungdiep urged, "Hurry, Vin-An, can hold it back for 3 seconds." Vin-An, hearing this, looked confused and said, "Grandpa, this guy is too strong. Should I risk my life to hold it back for you?" Vungdiep noticed something unusual and replied, "There's something in front attracting its attention. Right now, we can't afford to engage fully with it. The other spirits are surrounding us. Now is the best opportunity to eliminate it." Tutu received the signal and charged in, launching an attack from behind. Her body emitted an incredibly mystical aura. Tutu clenched her teeth, her face filled with indignation, and the dark energy surged from her body. It was terrifying, but those energies immediately spread out, enveloping the space. The spirits there trembled and became motionless. The demon eye was no exception, seemingly frightened. Tutu coldly pointed, saying, "You're done for." Vungdiep thought to himself, Tutu is about to lose control. The bell showed signs of falling. She created a shield that absorbed all the magical power. The demon eye could only stand still in fear, awaiting its fate. The eyes on the demon eye gradually regained their strength as the space was enveloped in magical power. Suddenly, a sharp beam of light swept through, severing the spirits. Vungdiep immediately spun around, shouting, "No!" He briefly thought, the demon has blocked this attack for me, hasn't it? Vin An's weapon was hit hard, falling to the ground and breaking in two. He shouted in anger, feeling wronged, and Vungdiep quickly thought that the treasure meant to block this brat's curse was also useless now. But nothing could stop Vin An. He continued to use another weapon, a talisman that Vin An had carefully chanted over. Immediately, a chilling wave swept through the weapon, causing Tutu to break free from the curse, and the wounds on her body began to heal. The dark energy immediately surrounded Tutu's body, her eyes suddenly turning a terrifying red. Tutu quickly threw a punch straight ahead, making the demon's eyes widen in fear. Vungdiep seized the opportunity, joyfully exclaiming, "Quick, stick the talisman on its eyes." The talisman weakened the demon's power, and Vinayan happily laughed, saying, "It's sealed now? Good. Do you still have that bill? Give me a bit." Vungdiep suddenly thought that Tutu's seal hadn't been broken yet, but this guy would likely not be easily controlled, and the talisman was still firmly attached to the demon's eyes. The talisman's effect made its body tremble uncontrollably, unable to stand firm. He continued, "I still have more tricks up my sleeve." As he finished speaking, Vungdiep raised the lantern he had in hand high. The lantern illuminated a vast area, the light dazzling. In the vicinity of the demon's eyes, Tutu also focused intently on the lantern, showing a strange expression with her lifeless gaze. Her eyes remained fixated on it. Vungdiep pondered, "At this crucial moment, don't cause more trouble for me." Suddenly, the demon's eyes began to show slight movements. He held the lantern tightly, following its movements, while the sky turned a mysterious red. Labang observed from above, murmuring, "The energy activation has completely disappeared, hasn't it?" He bit his lip hard, muttering some unpleasant words. Vungdiep slowly moved forward with the lantern, while the demon limped behind. Suddenly, he stopped, sensing something ahead. Vungdiep briefly thought about the peculiar sealed eyeball. The demon servant continued to use the talisman from earlier, still effective on its eyes. He contemplated what that meant. It meant that most of this demon's energy was concentrated in its eyeball. From the other side, strange noises began to echo. There were footsteps approaching from behind, accompanied by a voice scolding, "Are you tired of living?" Labang stepped out, surrounded by dark energy. Vungdiep was surprised and said, "Labang." He suddenly thought that this guy indeed had issues. Right now, he didn't have much energy to waste on him. Vungdiep spoke up, suggesting finding an opportunity to subdue him. He shouted angrily, extremely terrifying. Labang rushed in, yelling, "Give it back to me!" Vungdiep retorted, "Are you talking about this freak?" Vungdiep had already planned to keep Labang occupied before he exploded, saying, "Do you know how hard it was to lure it to Laman City? This is the perfect corpse. If I can control it, I will be invincible." Upon hearing this, Vungdiep showed a dismissive attitude, mumbling, "You brought it here for your so-called plan, and now the city is filled with dead people." Labang stubbornly replied, "Do you know how many demons I can suppress with this level of existence under my control? How many people can be saved? I can even lead humanity to wipe out the wasteland. The deaths of the people in this city will have meaning. Return it to me, or you can stay here." Vungdiep was furious, grinding his teeth in sarcasm. "Narrow-minded, you simply don't understand the wasteland." He was stunned and gently advised, "Don't provoke me, or I might not survive." "But you definitely can't live on." Tutu stood behind her, eyes hungry for Labang's flesh. She swiftly struck out, causing him to spit blood. Labang was beaten until he coughed up blood, but still managed to speak. "I will remember this grudge," Vungdiep lightly replied. "Aren't you still running?" After saying that, he quickly fled, thinking to himself how fortunate it was that the opponent was a coward. This Maovin An was utterly untrustworthy. Meanwhile, the seal on Tutu began to loosen. If he had acted recklessly just now, it would have been extremely disadvantageous. The sky was becoming increasingly hazy and dim. Vungdiep and the others continued to move inward, with Vin An saying, "You all go ahead. I'll slip away first. I'll wait for you in Tunkin. There are too many people I don't know." He suggested taking Tutu with him. "Right now, I don't have the energy to manage her." After saying this, he left with Tutu, while Vungdiep furrowed his brow, silently observing something. Suddenly, someone nearby shouted, "Captain Lu, look over there." Liu Chen asked, "Has the demon's aura faded?" He turned to see Vungdiep emerging from the thick mist. The dense smoke caused everyone around to aim their guns defensively. He held the lantern in his hand while the demon's eyes approached. Vungdiep remained calm, slowly walking forward. Seeing this, Liu Chen called out, "Vungdiep, it's really you." Vungdiep took a deep breath, and he and those around him were astonished. With wide eyes, he said, "Now, I will take this freak deep into the wasteland. Don't get in my way." Liu Chen unexpectedly asked, "So it's resolved then?" "That's great," but Vungdiep said sternly, If it were possible, would it require so much effort? He then asked, can't it be sealed? But if you bury it deep in the wasteland, what will you do? You pondered for a moment and replied, I'll find a way. The space suddenly fell silent. Luchin clenched his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. Finally, he turned to tell me to go replace him. I'm just an ordinary person. My sacrifice is to save you. It's not in vain. Luchin's gaze at you was filled with determination. Vungdiep warned that this monstrous thing has a very strong oppressive force. Those with weak bodies can't even get close to it. To maintain the action, at least one must be close to the strength of a body that has awakened 3 times. The others around suddenly realized that people like them wanting to die in place of him weren't even qualified. Luchin was still determined, shouting to survive and return. He bent down before you as if to assure the words he just said. Everyone there shouted in unison to survive and return. Vungdiep smirked teasingly. You waved your hand and glanced over, signaling you were going. After finishing his sentence, Vungdiep turned his back and moved deeper into the mist. Luchin quickly ordered to start the rescue. We can't let Vungdiep's sacrifice go to waste. Everyone around was very focused on receiving orders. Everyone took their positions in unison as the rescue shout began. Suddenly a phone rang and a conversation through the intercom took place, but it seemed something was off and the conversation abruptly ended. Tulung sat, still tightly closing his eyes. Seeing this, Dungsam asked what's wrong. He replied, Vungdiep is luring the city's demons deep into the wasteland alone. He was surprised and said what Vungdiep isn't the heroic type. Tulung smugly replied, you have to look at a person's inner self. Liu Tian and Vungkung exchanged confused glances. He said to the minister, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Tulung said nothing, just nodded in agreement. Liu Tian and Vungkung looked at each other, seemingly displeased. They both turned and left. In the dim dark space, Vungdiep held the bright red lantern and walked slowly. At this moment, your breath became rapid, your voice trembling. Your body was about to give out. Suddenly, the red light in your hand flickered, illuminating the distorted faces of the demons. You gritted your teeth, your voice hoarse, luring even more demons. In front of you, the demons gradually gathered, their red eyes shining in the dark. You thought about how these guys concentrated their oppressive force. Vungdiep's heart raced, cold sweat rolling down your cheeks as you tightened your grip on the red lantern. Your voice trembled with fear. It was terrifying. The red lantern gradually dimmed and the space became dark. Suddenly, a chilling scream echoed from the darkness as a fierce skeletal demon charged straight at you. Vungdiep was startled and stumbled back, but your feet slipped on the damp ground. You gritted your teeth, trying to maintain your balance, but it was useless. You cursed silently in your heart as your body fell to the ground, facing the slowly approaching skeletal demon. Your hands gripped the ground tightly, your eyes blazing in the darkness. The skeletal demon looked at you, grinning with its jagged teeth. Vungdiep gritted his teeth, his eyes fierce, raising his hand to clutch the red lantern tightly. You thought to yourself, I can't fall now. Suddenly the space became strangely quiet. The demons that were howling suddenly stood still, watching Vungdiep, who was slowly rising with the red lantern in hand. You then continued to walk slowly, but the demons silently followed behind. At this moment, Vungdiep slowly walked toward the old house in front of him. You thought, finally I've arrived. You stopped in front of the wooden door, sweat lightly falling, your voice trembling slightly. This is it. Vungdiep turned his head, his eyes slightly panicked as shadows of demons approached from afar. Suddenly a hand unexpectedly opened the door. The wooden door creaked open, revealing a demon shadow with glowing red eyes and a chilling smile. The sight was horrifying, causing Vungdiep to step back. The demon shadow suddenly swiped your lantern away, leaving you stunned, watching the lantern drop violently to the ground, the light suddenly dimming and then extinguishing. This caused the demons from afar to rush straight toward you, roaring with terrifying claws. They ran quickly toward Vungdiep, making you fearfully fall in front of the door, and you shouted, Post office! Your grandfather won't even let the mail truck come through here. Your grandfather will die. Just as you finished speaking, a blinding white light cut through the darkness. The roar of an engine echoed as a car rushed straight and crashing into the demons, charging forward. Vungdiep gritted his teeth, trying to stand up and reach for the car door. With a swift motion, you opened the car door amidst the attack of the demons. You jumped into the driver's seat, gasping for breath, your heart racing as the car roared and sped off into the night, leaving behind the screams of the demons. At this moment in the office, Wang Kim laughed mockingly. Haha, I admit, Vungdiep is very strong, but he won't survive to return. So I advise you all to know your place and give up this quarter team. Relying on ugly, incompetent people like you can't possibly withstand a team. Behind him, Chu Ham sat on the sofa, focused on his phone. After hearing those words, Vungkung felt sad and thought, based on my position, I really have no right to speak back to the Wang Kiem. He's the son of the Minister of Action. Suddenly, Liu Tian beside him raised her voice. Vungdiep is still alive. Wang Kim's face darkened, his tone dripping with sarcasm. What's wrong? Did you sleep with Vungdiep, or do you see yourself as his woman? He slapped her hard, adding, To me, you're just trash. Who gave you the right to talk to me? Vungkung stepped up to defend, shouting, Don't go too far. The guard of Wang Kiem saw this and stepped forward to threaten them. He stood up to intimidate the two of them. Looking at the guard, they felt scared. Chu Ham, behind them, suddenly spoke up. Hey, you guys are too loud. Don't disturb my game. Seeing this, Wang Kiem chuckled. Haha, just teaching these two clueless fools a lesson. I didn't expect it would affect you. Sorry, Shoham. Why don't you join our team? She looked at the screen, her tone indifferent. I'm not going with a bunch of useless people. Hearing her words, he was stunned, eyes wide open. He pointed at Vunkung, challenging, 3 days from now, I'll come to challenge your team. If the spontaneous organization team can't win, then you all don't need to exist anymore. Van Kiem turned away, but his voice still echoed. By then, I'll report and eliminate you. After hearing this, Liu Tian's expression darkened with sadness. Vunkung beside her looked determined and said, Vung Diep only went deep into the wilderness. He might not be dead. He looked at Liu Tian behind Chu Ham, observing them. She unexpectedly spoke up, I'll take action. After all, this team is the legacy of that annoying Vung Diep. Yes, Vunkung said coldly. I'll contact Li Hongtian. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned and walked away. On the other side, Tulung, furious, slammed his hand down on the table, shouting, This is the quota decided by the team leader. You all want to compete too. A low voice rang out, but Vung Diep couldn't come back anymore. Trung Tan beside him replied succinctly, He's probably dead. Tulung, upon hearing this, yelled angrily, But he saved Lam An City. He saved hundreds of thousands of people. The guy chuckled, teasing, Oh, still, our cold-blooded Minister Trung. Trung Tan then spoke in a deep voice. I admit this time Vung Diep was outstanding, very talented. I admire him. I know what I did was wrong, but logically your logistics team can't face the supernatural events. I'm only thinking about the safety of the people. Tulung sighed softly, his gaze downcast, pondering. Maybe you're right. Manhwa and Trung Tan looked at him pleased and smug, but he then set a condition. 1 month for him. 1 month. If he doesn't return by then, I'll give you all. Manhwa shouted, This is outrageous. The supernatural events are increasing. We don't have a month to wait for him. Trung Tan beside him also opposed, No way. Tulung frowned angrily, saying, As long as I'm alive, no one thinks they can touch our logistics team. Just as he finished speaking, suddenly his whole body turned black, surrounded by a purple aura. Onhua and Trung Tan were both surprised by that power. Their voices rang out, You're also a supernatural ability user. Upon hearing this, he burst into laughter. Haha, it's useless. At this moment, no matter what he did, it wouldn't work. He turned away, his sharp gaze saying, Going with a common trend is the way. Trung Tan walked out, praising, Actually, I admire you quite a bit. Onhua followed behind, winking at Tulung, which surprised him, leaving him puzzled. As they left, Tulung fell into deep thought side, and with a gloomy face, he got up to look at the city through the window. Talking to myself, Vung Diep, do you know how many people are watching you right now? He frowned, his voice full of anger. Hurry back to me. At that moment, the vehicle carrying Vung Diep was speeding along the winding mountain road, the tires grinding against the rugged surface, leaving behind a trail of dust in the night. Inside the vehicle, Vung Diep held the steering wheel, his voice cold. Damn, my head hurts. He released his grip on the wheel, leaning back in the seat, his tone dropping. Sure enough, the post office won't blink an eye while watching me die. His gaze flicked to the dashboard, momentarily stunned. This delivery vehicle can drive itself. Why didn't anyone say so? He thought to himself. This time, the biggest trump card of mine is the post office. At the very least, they've invested a lot of resources in me. They won't be willing to let me die like this. Vung Diep looked ahead and said, We're almost at Tonkin. But he frowned and muttered softly, Are you kidding me? At this moment, the vehicle was still speeding through the canyon. He wondered, What is the post office doing deep in the wilderness? In the cabin, Vung Diep saw a red envelope and reached out curiously, asking, Is there a mission? He opened the letter and chuckled lightly. The production team's slackers aren't even this diligent. The words in the letter clearly stated the address, Chua Tiu An. The mission was to deliver a letter to the Buddha statue in the main hall, light an incense stick, and leave after it extinguished. The reward was cleaning marrow. Vung Diep looked at the letter, his voice low. This red letter isn't simple. Before it was just about delivering the letter. This time with another request, you leaned back in your chair, closed your eyes, and thought to take a little break. Given your current physical state, you weren't sure if you could walk. Outside, the night mist was thick, shrouding the mountains and forests. Among the mist-stone tablets stood tall, cracked, and broken. In the midst of them, a figure emerged, and you bent down to inhale the thick black smoke rising from a water crevice. Suddenly, you plopped down. The black smoke gradually dispersed and then gathered around the stone tablet. After a moment, you stood up and walked over to the tablet, your voice challenging. What are you still hesitating about? This is your destiny. If you keep going, it's not like you won't have another chance. Are you scared? A voice echoed from within the stone, deep and muffled, as if something was awakening. After a moment, the thick black smoke began to rise again, and you quickly inhaled it, feeling smug. Right after all, the outcome is still uncertain, isn't it? At that moment, the vehicle carrying Vung Diep suddenly stopped in front of the temple. You glanced out the window with a cold expression. Ahead, a large gate opened, surrounded by swirling purple energy, with brilliant blue and purple light flashing in the center. The silhouette of a person appeared hazy, as if stepping out of thin air. Vung Diep slowly locked the car door and attentively observed the quiet night as you approached the interior of the mansion. In front of you were masked figures hanging from trees, and inside the mansion there were also masked figures hanging from the ceiling. The faces of those masked figures were hanging lifelessly. At that moment, Vung Diep felt a bit of fear and wondered if the spirits here wanted to intimidate him. Your back began to retreat outside. The side of these hanging figures seemed to watch you. In front of you was a large Buddha statue, and suddenly you heard a chanting sound near your ear. Your gaze was fixed on the statue, the chanting emanating from it was very somber in the still air. You looked at the mysterious vase on the table, and in your hand you quietly placed a piece of paper on the table. Suddenly, while lighting incense, you smiled, wondering if the spirits here remained calm like this. Vungdiep focused reverently in front of the Buddha. The paper you placed on the table was just catching fire, and you began to widen your eyes looking up. The Buddha statue before you was shedding tears of blood. A strong gust of wind swept around where Vungdiep stood, and the masked figures hanging from the trees began to sway their eyes, also shedding tears of blood. At that moment, the pupils lit up, and the hanging spirits suddenly fell to the ground with a loud thud. In a small house, strange noises began to echo. A container was tightly sealed, but sounds were continuously coming from inside. Vungdiep held the sword amidst the smoky enchantment, sweat soaking his face, when suddenly a disgusting laugh rang out. You glanced at the door. Slowly pushing it open, a figure emerged from the door. The spirit revealed its head, baring its teeth in a grin. Vungdiep thought to himself, no matter what happens around him, as long as it doesn't affect the burning incense stick, there's no need to act. You suddenly realized something and widened your eyes, observing that more and more spirits were appearing. Vungdiep briefly thought they were all corpses hanging from the trees. It seemed they didn't dare enter the Buddha hall. You glanced back and suddenly wondered if it was because of the incense stick or the letter. While those thoughts lingered, someone walked straight inside, and Vungdiep was stunned, turning to see what it was. That person collapsed to the ground, and you were taken aback by the action. The spirit knelt on the ground, looking up at the sky, suddenly opening its mouth wide, revealing sharp teeth, and let out a loud scream that shook the sky. It seemed furious upon seeing Vungdiep. You, with beads of sweat streaming down your face, thought about the aura of this curse. Vungdiep observed everything and suddenly realized the mourning attire. You thought this monstrous spirit wanted to sacrifice you. The incense had only burned a third of the way, and you still had to hold on. Vungdiep frowned, his gaze sharp. The spirit continued to encounter other spirits, and it quickly noticed that turning its eyes toward you, preparing to launch an attack from above. Vungdiep swung the sword down to chop off its head, but you realized you couldn't cut it. You immediately reversed your grip and knocked the spirit down, thinking that the bowing ritual was interrupted. The threat from this monstrous spirit was too great. The spirit quickly got up and continued to kneel on the ground. You angrily cursed, "You annoying thing. Why do you have to use the separation of the demon sword?" Vungdiep turned and thought, what about this whole mess? Is this the Kim Gwangji Buddha clan? These are all spirits transformed from the deceased of the Buddha clan. After pondering, you swung the sword, but all of Vungdiep's attacks were evaded. The raucous laughter of the spirit made you extremely uncomfortable. You thought, how annoying, and then unleashed a series of powerful kicks that struck right on the spirit's head, sending it rolling far away. But the demon still sprang up, kneeling again, thinking that this thing wouldn't die or give up. You had to use a different technique. The cursed sword of Vungdiep emitted a fierce red aura as you swung it, launching an attack at the demon, slicing it cleanly in two. Vungdiep kicked the other half of the demon away, sending it flying far off. But another figure appeared. You cursed silently in your mind. Still, Vungdiep stepped out coldly with the sword in hand. You narrowed your sharp eyes, staring intently at the back where the demons appeared, a terrifying aura surrounding Vungdiep as he stood in the midst of the demon horde. You thought to yourself that you had to hold out for half a stick of incense. Suddenly, a different form was approaching, and Vungdiep was so frustrated thinking about what new monster had arrived. A bronze artifact resembling a small seal that had been sealed before. The blood lady, with her eyes full of malice, stepped out from behind the fabric. Beneath her belly, there was another eye. You suddenly thought, what is this? The blood lady slowly limped forward, and Vungdiep was utterly stunned to see the eye beneath her belly. You took a few steps back to observe more closely, gripping the sword tightly in your hand. But it seemed you were a bit scared of something. At that moment in the small room, the atmosphere was incredibly tense. Van Kiem stood still, slightly smirking, while Trongtine seemed extremely tense, maintaining that attitude. Raising his hand as if to say something, Van Kiem frowned, glaring straight ahead at Trongtine, who suddenly looked up with a sharp gaze, still keeping that rude demeanor, staring directly into Trongtine's eyes. Van Kiem finally spoke, pretending after so many years. "Do you really think I'm your father? How could I have a father figure like you? You should manage him right away," shouting to shut up. "I'm not even sure if there are listening devices in this office." He turned his back and walked away, mocking how, after all these years, he was still as cowardly as before. Trongtan calmed down, thinking it was hateful. If it weren't for respecting Li Tinha, why would he have to stay here? However, this was a good opportunity to probe a bit into Li Tinha's limits. At most, just push this useless thing out to die. Meanwhile, Wang Diep seemed extremely angry, muttering about how long he had to hold out, wondering what would happen if that demon bowed down to the Buddha statue. You spoke up, saying it was getting more and more lively here. The demon was cut in half, but still crawled along to join the fun, its face still wearing that expression. Wang Diep stared at the demon, refusing to give up. It continued to drag itself along the ground, slowly trying to reconnect its severed body. Wang Diep saw this and cursed silently, asking if it would ever stop. The blood lady and the demon stood there staring ahead with faces full of resentment, growling. Suddenly, from the Blood Lady's belly, a monster emerged, and Wang Diep thought it was a disaster. These creatures could quickly advance. From the red barrier earlier, sound suddenly erupted as the barrier shattered, scattering debris. Unexpectedly, it was completely broken, and the lid burst open, revealing a figure stepping out amidst the mist. The old man immediately sprang up from the sealed barrier, his long beard hanging down, staring straight at you. The old man stumbled out, declaring he had succeeded. Turning around, the Buddha statue suddenly appeared with streaks of bright red blood. Wang Diep encouraged himself to hold on a little longer, turning around and unexpectedly seeing something making him anxious. How could he tell himself to hold on? You raised the sword, thinking you could only take the risk. Suddenly, a shout echoed, shaking the entire space. Amitabha Buddha. The voice caused the demon to quickly split in two, and the demons froze in place, trembling. The Blood Lady was no exception. She staggered when that shout rang out. Wang Diep was also taken aback, standing still, suddenly thinking about what else could be lurking. The incense smoke had nearly dissipated. You were injured, but still speculated that the voice came from the back courtyard. At that moment, long strands shot up from the ground, piercing into the earth, wrapping around the old man's legs. Gradually, those strands began to entangle him more and more, forming a tight coil. They even sprouted sharp black thorns. He seemed shocked as he noticed something unusual. The old man's eyes widened, filled with a mystical light, staring intently, as the incense continued to emit smoke, growing shorter. The demons therefore became even more ferocious. Wang Diep wiped the blood from his mouth, finally saying he had to take a risk. Bloodmother growled and charged forward, her eyes filled with malice as more and more demonic monks rushed towards him. Wang Diep exclaimed, "This cursed mission! I still have a trump card." He pulled out a small jar containing a red liquid from his pocket. Wang Diep poured it onto the table and used a lighter to ignite it. The flame instantly erupted from the red liquid, and soon after a red glow enveloped the entire area, scaring off the demons that clung to him. He suddenly realized and turned around, realizing what they were truly after. Wang Diep looked up at the Buddha statue and exclaimed, "What they want is this." He was incredibly surprised. This fragment burned much faster than an ordinary candle. However, this small piece couldn't hold out for long. Fortunately, the incense was also about to burn out. The Bloodmother and the demonic monks stepped closer to him, their terrifying eyes seeming to want to devour him whole. Wang Diep gritted his teeth, enduring, thinking, "I can't hold back any longer." The ropes tightened around the old man's frail body, lifting him up. The old man bared his teeth and long beard, grinning triumphantly. He used all his strength to break the ropes, which shattered into pieces, and he gently landed on the ground. Once the ropes were no longer effective, his eyes filled with schemes and calculations. The old man walked slowly, dressed in his dignified attire, toward the front. Wang Diep found it extremely difficult to confront these demonic monks. After a while of holding on the candle on the table, finally extinguished, he sighed in relief, standing still, thinking, "It's over." The bells in the courtyard rang continuously, causing the entire space to tremble in fear. The incessant sound made the demonic monks dizzy, and they were immediately thrown out of the doorway. The sound also forced Wang Diep to grit his teeth and endure, but the ringing continued without stopping. The old man was no exception. He was also affected. He turned his back and glanced at the tightly packed row behind him, as if being pulled toward it, unable to resist. The pull quickly drew the old man into the row. He tried to escape, but it seemed futile. After a while, the row was sealed tightly and there was no sound left. At that moment, the demonic monks had gathered under the large tree with ropes from the branches, tightly wrapping around its neck. Those ropes quickly pulled the demonic monks upward, and everything gradually returned to how it was before. The space became completely quiet. Wang Diep sighed in relief, sweat still dripping down his face. He thought to himself, "There's still a little bit of this fragment left. It's truly a lifesaver." Wang Diep looked up and suddenly saw something. He briefly thought about a force intervening here. Wang Diep stood there, pondering that there was still something strange here. But in the distance, an object on the cushion was glowing. Wang Diep saw it and thought, "Is this it?" He approached closer, contemplating that it seemed to be a supernatural item. He had once bled for the Lil'an Temple and couldn't allow himself to bleed while shedding tears. This time, he absolutely couldn't let it go. Wang Diep quickly put the object into his bag. Having completed all his tasks, he quickly stepped out of the door, looking around, thinking, have they all dispersed? Finally safe, Wang Diep walked over to a nearby car. He slowly and gently opened the car door and got in. As he sat down, he let out a long sigh, but deep down he still felt quite exhausted. What a pain. However, the ghostly figure was still there, its form intact, with Wang Diep's image firmly imprinted in its furious red eyes. The ghost continued to kneel beside his car, a demon with red eyes bowing down to the ground. Seeing this, Wang Diep realized something was off. He looked through the car window, confused, saying, "This thing is still here." Suddenly, blood began to flow from the corners of his eyes and mouth. It made him tremble in fear, and his mind raced as he scrambled to get out of the car, but it was too late. Blood spewed from his mouth as Wang Diep clutched his chest in pain. His face gradually cracked with red streaks appearing in his eyes, and his nose began to bleed. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He shakily picked up a smoke bomb. He thought that the arrangement of the Heavenly Order might stop the Demon King's killing rule. He decisively pulled the pin from the bomb, hoping it would be useful. The demon sensed something strange. It raised its head unexpectedly, feeling a wave of smoke spreading from the car. Inside, he couldn't bear it and coughed up blood. The grey smoke gradually dissipated, and from the corners of Wang Diep's eyes, blood still flowed. He slowly fainted while outside the demon stepped back, avoiding the car he was in. Suddenly, the car sped away. He sat unconscious inside, while behind him the demon stood with a strange posture, the grey smoke gradually fading under the bright moonlight on the street beside the tall buildings where a crowd was walking. Suddenly, Hao-min was pushed out of the house by a force. He lay sprawled on the ground. Ban Qian walked over, mocking, "Useless. Can't you see your own level, Wang Diep? Do you even deserve to eat this cake?" After saying that, he turned to look at Trong Hyo, asking, "Are you coming by yourself, or do you want me to escort you?" He spoke mockingly, laughing, saying, "Or, at night you can come to my room to discuss a bit about existential philosophy like that. I might consider leaving you in the squad." She clenched her fist in anger, staring at him, then brushed past Wang Qian, moving closer to Hao-min, who was struggling to get up. Trong Hyo was helping Hao-min when suddenly someone approached. Wang Qian frowned, feeling alert and thinking to himself, "Is she going to make a move?" Chu-ham appeared, and around her knives flew wildly, along with her furious expression. Seeing this, Trong Hyo quickly ran over to Chu-ham, using her actions to stop her, then whispered to her, "Let it go, Wang Diep isn't here today. There will be more people coming later." Chu-ham frowned, using her hand to cast a spell. A beam of golden light shot out from a small pouch at her waist. Trong Hyo supported Hao-min. He clutched his chest, signaling with his eyes that everything was fine in a room on the Kaodoliang building. He shouted loudly, "Team leader, are we just going to let our logistics team be bullied by others?" Jiahua calmly replied, "But the logistics team, you really can't handle it anymore. You can't bear the burden anymore." Tu Liang continued sharply, "Is it possible that Wang Diep will definitely die? At least right now no one can find his body." Jiahua tiredly rubbed his forehead, and the secretary of Trong Tan mocked, saying, "You've gone deep into the wilderness. How can you find the body?" Trong Tan sneered, "Old man, give it up." Tu Liang angrily replied, "Give up on your son." He laughed, saying, "Ha ha, at least Wang Kim has awakened for the third time." Tu Liang shouted, "Awakened for the third time, you're using your power for personal gain." Jiahua angrily yelled, "That's enough. From today onwards, Team A will switch to a challenge mode. Win, and you go up. Lose, and you go down. If there's nothing going on, just go outside." Tu Liang trembled with anger, furrowing his brows, looking at the old man, gritting his teeth and saying, "Team leader, that's not fair. Laman City still needs the blood supply of Wang Diep. His blood hasn't dried yet. Isn't this too much?" Trong Khan brushed past him, smugly saying, "If Wang Diep isn't satisfied, just tell him to take it back. Of course, if he can survive." Saying this, he walked away leisurely. The secretary, frowning, followed behind. The room fell silent, leaving only Jiahua and Tu Liang. The old man calmly spoke, still acting. His hand rested under his chin, looking seriously at the person in front of him. Tu Liang had a cold expression, but a slight smug smile appeared on his lips. Then he turned away, his eyes clearly showing joy, as he calmly said, "I'm not angry. How could I make the foolish fish bite the hook?" Tu Liang approached the large window of the room and gently continued, "I just wonder if our logistics team takes all the quotas from the team, will those two worry?" He looked at the proud figure of Trong Tan and the person beside him walking down the street through the window with an unreadable expression. Tu Liang looked outside the glass of the room, saying, "I just wonder if our logistics team takes all the quotas. Will those two worry?" Then Jiahua turned back to ask him, "Oh, are you confident Wang Diep won't die?" Tu Liang took out his phone, looking at the screen, and calmly replied, "I've set up a satellite locator on his phone." He slightly smirked. "He's coming back soon." Jiahua smiled. "Then you have a bit of hope." The old man walked over to Tu Liang, clasping his hands behind his back, saying, "There's something you need to know. Dao Tan sent word that their little Taoist is going out for a trip and might come to Shangjing soon." Tu Liang was surprised, his face showing admiration, as he asked again, "Dao Tan, if the little Taoist and the people of Tamfonghan fight returning to where Wang Diep is," he was sitting in a chair deep in thought. "It seems he has saved himself this time." Suddenly he woke up frowning with cold, sharp eyes. He looked at the locator moving in a straight line on the map, feeling relieved, whispering, "Finally, the post office has let me go. This is the way back. It looks like I'm almost back to Shangjing." At this moment, Wang Diep's body was still aching. He rubbed his shoulder, complaining that this time the loss was too great. He still didn't know the effectiveness of this wooden fish, but the privileges of the post office made him curious. He sighed, his sharp eyes staring into the darkness, taking a deep breath. At this moment, his eyes aged. He whispered, "Before getting home, I should take a nap." Inside Wang Diep's house, the door seemed to have just been opened by someone. Chu-ham stood with her arms crossed, leaning against the door, looking at the one resembling Wang Diep. She approached where he was sitting, saying, "It's you again, you monster." She added, "He's coming back soon. Be careful. You might fail miserably." He glanced at her, not responding to her words, then stood up. He grabbed the remote and turned on the TV, then picked up a mop to clean the house. Seeing this, Chu-ham mocked, "Are you the cleaning staff?" He seemed to ignore her, slowly pushing the mop. After a while, the room was cleaned up. The table and glass door were polished to a shine, reflecting like a mirror. At that moment, a commercial for a room spray was playing on TV. He glanced over at Chuham and kept pointing at the screen to get her attention, letting her know he wanted a bottle just like that. Chuham sighed in exasperation, really not knowing where he popped up from. She tossed the spray bottle into his hands, then waved him off and went back to her room, saying she didn't need it and he could keep it. He took the room spray and sprayed it all over the nooks and crannies of the room. Once the place smelled fresh, he lifted his shirt to reveal his six-pack abs and tucked the spray bottle into his waistband. A few moments later, his stomach gradually flattened and then he walked out of Wang Diep's room. This morning, he walked towards his room, opened the door, and slowly stepped inside. He closed the door with a slam just as the mail truck brought Wang Diep back to the apartment, his face marked with scratches, looking exhausted from lack of sleep. He sat dazed in the car, glancing outside. He got out, closed the door, and let out a long sigh. After taking a few steps, he turned back to see Wang Diep struggling up the stairs, looking completely worn out. As he approached his room, he hesitated, wondering if someone had entered since his rebirth. The house had become increasingly lively. He held a dirty knife defensively in front of him. When he opened the door, he was surprised to see the room neatly tidied up. He couldn't help but doubt, wasn't the sofa completely ruined last time? This time seemed different from what he had expected, as he found no hidden dangers. He changed and lay down on the bed to rest after a long, tiring day, propping his hand on his forehead, thinking that it seemed temporarily safe now. As night fell, everything sank into silence, the apartment illuminated by moonlight. At that moment, Wang Diep was deep in sleep when suddenly his whole body glowed with a light that made him uncomfortable, causing him to sweat. In the room, there was a mail door surrounded by pink air floating around. Wang Diep woke up murmuring, "Is it here already?" He got out of bed and stood watching the air seeping through the mail door. A few seconds later, he frowned, thinking about the reward this time. Wang Diep opened the door, hoping it wouldn't be too extreme, as he stepped inside. Streams of light directed towards him made him feel dizzy and in pain. He couldn't bear it and collapsed to the ground, lying face down unconscious. Was every body transformation this painful? After a while, his wounds healed and he gently opened his mouth to breathe lightly. Gradually, he opened his eyes and stood up slowly, the energy still radiating around him. He raised his hand in front of him, clenched it tightly, and felt the blood flowing in his body. It made a sound like flowing water. Wang Diep felt much better and was happy to test his current abilities. Then he decisively took the knife to his wrist, enhancing his defensive power. What about doubling the strength? The cutting force was strong, but not much blood flowed out, just a few drops. A few seconds later, the cut healed itself. He was very pleased that his healing ability had improved so much. Perhaps now he could fight against those Buddha clan members. He didn't know what kind of power his body would have in front of the Buddha. He was satisfied as he walked to the table where there was a key and a piece of paper. The content written on the paper stated that the primary mail office could use a level 1 supernatural item each month, which was non-consumable and could be used in one day based on the key to open any room in the mail office. The next mission was in 3 days. He grumbled, 3 days? Does the mail office really see me as a donkey? But with the time of 2 eternal deaths getting shorter, the mail office seems to be in a hurry. Is it a rush to deliver mail or to enhance their own strength? Or both? Right now, Wang Diep was still standing still in the dark room, feeling tense, realizing that as his power grew stronger, he felt the terrifying nature of the mail office more and more. As his power grew stronger, he felt the mysterious dread of the mail office. The Little Ant Temple's mysterious chant of Adirafat had caused countless strong demons to suffer. The sound of 7 bells could completely drive away all demons. But among those demons, their aura was not inferior to half of the city of Lam'an. He touched the doorknob, wondering what role the mail office played in this event. What position did the operator hold? Who were they cooperating with behind this door leading to the stairs? Wang Diep questioned himself whether the mail office was human or demon. Suddenly he realized something was off and frowned. In front of the stairs there was a lot of eerie and ominous mist, as if it could mesmerize the body. Wang Diep's gaze changed, but he quickly shook his head and tried to regain his composure. He then turned his gaze to a cabinet in the corner of the room. Wang Diep immediately walked over, thinking that with his current strength in front of the mail office, he was just an ant waiting for the day he could reach the second floor of the mail office. Only then could he gain more understanding of the mail office. Suddenly he noticed something on top of the cabinet displaying many different items. Wang Diep stared at a small jar, wondering. Now he could see the very practical authority through Mao Vinyan. He had deeply realized just how powerful the supernatural items were, including the time at the Little Ant Temple. If he hadn't previously scraped the candle fragments, he might have already died. Now he was stunned, discovering something standing dazed in the room, thinking that the candle fragments, the mail office, had probably calculated everything. Outside, it was still pitch black. Wang Diep was sitting dazed on the sofa, sighing, when suddenly the doorknob turned and someone opened the door. It was Chuham, peeking her head into the room. When she looked at him, she noticed Wang Diep staring at her, causing her to jump. She then spoke, "My house is where they sell breakfast, right?" She awkwardly replied, "Oh, I just wanted to see if you were back. Our team's quota has been snatched away by someone else." Wang Diep set the glass of water down on the table and replied, "You think I won't come back? So it's perfectly normal for you to take over the team quota and seize resources right to Van Kim." Chuham nodded. "You're really clever," he continued. "I've only been gone for a few days, and the only one in such a hurry must be him. But To Van Kim might not be a match for you. Why don't you take action?" Chu Ham seemed a bit shy and replied, "He's awakened 3 times already. I can't fight him." But Vung Diep's expression turned serious. "3 times, huh? I see." At that moment, he quickly texted Tulung saying, "I'm back. Come to my place," he said, looking up and asking, "Do you want me to make breakfast for you?" Hearing this, Chu Ham quickly dashed behind the door and slammed it shut with a loud bang. Seeing this, he felt utterly helpless. After a while, Vung Diep picked up the phone to answer. On the other end, Tulung spoke, "Vung Diep, you're back. It's good that I'm back, but the team quota from our logistics department has been snatched by To Van Kim. If you had called a bit later, I would have resigned." Vung Diep's face darkened. "You old fox, you don't need to act with me anymore." He added, "I want to create a bit of chaos in Thunkin." You asked back, "How chaotic do you want it to be?" Tulung's voice dropped, becoming a bit cold. "When necessary, it could lead to a few deaths." Right now, Vung Diep was still sitting alone on the sofa, and the room was filled with strange energies. While on the phone, he suddenly noticed something unusual. Vung Diep stared blankly at that direction for a long time, then immediately hung up the phone. He quickly walked to the door and opened it. Outside stood Lin Lan and Hao Min. Seeing them, Vung Diep asked, "Where's Li Hongtian?" She quickly replied, "I haven't seen him since I left Minister Tring's office." Hearing this, he looked exasperated and said, "Forget him. You two go to the opposite room and call Chu Ham. Get ready to set off." Hearing Vung Diep say this, the two looked awkward, unsure of what to say. After a moment, he stepped out of the room. Vung Kung and Liu Tian were also here. Vung Diep continued talking on the phone. "Has the Taoist arrived in Thunkin yet? Take him out for a bit, or in other words, introduce him to some beauties." The person on the other end, Vin An, seemed very excited and pleased to hear this. His face looked more twisted than ever. At that moment, he felt a bit helpless. "Yes," Vung Diep continued. "I've already sent him a message." "All right then," he said, quickly hanging up. His face was thoughtful, reflecting on what Trung Tulung had said. It seemed that Mao Ving An's value was greater than he had anticipated. As for what would happen when he and Chu Ham met, whether Chu Ham would suppress him or Mao Ving An would rise against him, it had nothing to do with him. Moreover, he had to bring Tutu back. He couldn't rest easy outside. Right now, Chu Ham was wearing a very alluring maid outfit, standing in front of him saying, "Do you want to fight? How can I protect you?" Seeing this, Vung Diep felt a bit excited and remarked, "You look great today." She shyly turned away. "How annoying." He added, "Don't worry, I've sent someone to keep you safe." Chu Ham looked surprised and asked, "Protect me?" At this moment, her face flushed. He replied, "I don't know if Mao Vingyan can handle it. I'm really looking forward to it." After saying that, Vung Diep stepped down the stairs and declared, "Let's go seize the main team." Meanwhile, at Van Kim's place, he was leisurely enjoying wine. He thought to himself, "This belongs to us." At this moment, Vung Diep's group was standing in front of Van Kim's house, their faces serious and silently staring at the house. Vung Kung spoke up. "Yesterday, Van Kim took the main team. Are we going to take action now?" He replied, "Today, at least for this fight, I'm not the main character." Just then, Vin An's voice rang out from behind. "There he is, the one with the last name, Vuong." He and Teotu approached. Vin An shouted, "Has the beauty you wanted to introduce to me arrived yet?" He walked and laughed foolishly, looking quite perverted. Teotu's expression grew calmer and more natural. At that moment, Wang Ye wondered if he could use a hammer to drive the copper nails back in. If it had the opposite effect, maybe he could smash it in the office of that old man Zhang Ziliang, who seemed relatively reliable. After arriving at Vin Yan's group, they kept laughing and joking, leaving everyone feeling a bit helpless. Wang Ye immediately felt annoyed and cleared his throat, startling him. Then he silently pointed at Chu Han, and Vin An's gaze shifted to her, captivated by her beauty, causing his face to flush with embarrassment. In Vin An's mind, the only image was of her. He quickly put a rose in his mouth and said, "What do you think about naming our child Mao Tsung?" Upon hearing this, Chu Han seemed stunned and exclaimed, "Huh!" She quickly turned to Wang Ye and shouted, "The bodyguard you arranged for me." At that moment, he avoided Chu Han's gaze and chuckled. Then she turned to Vin An, with an angry look startling him. Without hesitation, Chu Han lifted her foot and kicked Vin An squarely in the face, causing him to fall to the ground quickly, dropping the firecrackers that scattered everywhere, some hitting the front door and breaking it. Instantly, 3 firecrackers moved closer together and quickly joined to form a block, suddenly exploding with a loud bang, shattering all the glass doors. The adjacent door also shattered due to the shockwave, and not stopping there, all the doors of the house burst open, simultaneously leaving Liu Tian and Wang Qiang stunned, standing frozen in shock. At that moment, the group of Jin Chang and Wang Kim rushed out from inside the house, panicking to the point of trembling uncontrollably and coughing violently. One of them sat on the ground, clutching his head in pain, while Wang Kim clutched his chest and shouted, "Who threw the firecrackers?" Upon seeing Wang Ye, he widened his eyes in surprise and then shouted, "Aren't you supposed to be dead in the wasteland?" Wang Kim angrily yelled, "Wang Ye, calm down. Who told you I was dead?" He secretly glanced at Tutu and felt annoyed that crazy woman was also here. At this moment, Wang Kim looked at Jin Chang, who was preparing to power up. Suddenly, he activated a lot of strength and became unusual. Seeing this, Wang Ye was a bit surprised and stared at Jin Chang, exclaiming, "Huh!" He began to stomp his foot on the ground to gain momentum. Right after that, he charged forward at high speed. Wang Ye laughed, "So you're powered up now. No wonder you're so bold." At that moment, Jin Kang jumped into the air, intending to attack him, but with just one hand, Wang Ye was able to block his move, unleashing waves of power and countering Jin Chang. This caused him to fall backward, and Wang Kim shouted angrily, "Wang Ye, this is the city of Shangjing. Do you understand the rules?" Wang Ye calmly stepped closer and said, "Why didn't you say that when you brought people here?" At this moment, Wang Ye raised his foot and stomped hard on Jin Chang's hand, breaking his bones instantly. Jin Chang trembled in pain, and Wang Ye coldly replied, not satisfied. Before he could say more, Jin Chang lost consciousness. Wang Ye looked at Wang Kim and smiled, startling him. Then Wang Ye asked, "Why aren't you shouting anymore? Jin Chang is awake now." But he still lay motionless on the ground, bleeding profusely from his nose, shouting, "Kill me! Kill me!" Wang Ye coldly asked, "You're from the Buddha clan, right?" At this moment, Wang Qiang and Liu Tian exchanged silent glances, understanding each other. Vin An's face darkened and he smiled, showing his displeasure. Jin Kang shouted loudly, "Kill me! My contributions to the heavenly ancestor are not something you can insult." Wang Ye turned to him and said, "I didn't hear your wish to die, did I?" Wang Kim remained silent and said nothing. Tiu Tu stood at a distance, staring coldly at Wang Kim. Wang Ye tightened the rope around his neck, and Wang Kim yelled, "Boring cowards, like you only know how to act tough." Wang Ye ignored his words and asked, "Do you want to tie yourself up, or should I help you?" Seeing this, Wang Kim's face turned extremely unpleasant, and he immediately ran back at high speed. At the same time, Wang Ye also teleported. He moved to run parallel to him. Taking advantage of Wang Kim's distraction, Wang Ye kicked him hard in the back, causing him to fall forward in pain, bleeding profusely from his mouth. Clutching his chest, the kid stood there silently observing. Wang Ye coldly pulled the rope around Wang Kim's neck, saying, "I told you to tie yourself up." Wang Ye glanced at the group with him, and they all jumped in fear. Immediately, the three of them rushed over to Wang Kim and tied him up. Then, he quickly yanked the rope and moved forward, dragging the tightly bound man along with him, followed by the others. Wang Diep added, "Let's head to the next house." A little while later, his group arrived at the second house. Wang Diep stared at it intently and smiled confidently. Inside the house, sounds of a scuffle and many people arguing could be heard. "What are you doing? Who are you?" "Wang Diep, you're still alive." The captain named Jia Hua inside was visibly annoyed. Zhongtan slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "Captain, you need to take charge for me. Our two squads have been eliminated by Wang Diep." In his eyes, there was still a glimmer of hope. At that moment, Jia Hua's face turned more displeased than ever. Tulong turned to say, "Minister, do you really have a short temper? I wonder who said what yesterday. If Wang Diep isn't dead, we can take him back." He was furious. At that moment, Onhua knocked on the door outside. The guy walked in with a smile and said, "Minister Truong, Wang Diep has gone to our intelligence squad." "Go ahead and name your price," the other guy said, looking at our minister, who knows how to be reasonable. "On my brother, what's there to be polite about between us?" The guy sat down and said, "Saying that is disrespectful to me. How can you let your people come and attack us? You should still give a little fee. I feel that Wang Diep is a talented genius of the heavenly clan, and we must invest heavily in him. 3,000 accumulated points. What do you think?" Tuluang chuckled. "Oh, my brother, you're being polite. Based on the mission in Laman City, Wang Diep has already earned 1,000 accumulated points. Not that much, though." Onhoa became flustered. "How about allocating resources for Squad A in 5 months? At this moment, Tuluang picked up the phone and called Wang Diep. "Minister On is taking care of your recent hard work, especially rewarding Squad A with resources for 5 months. Right, go back and then about the action squad. Right now, Trongtan is furious. I can't believe that guy, you shouldn't go too far," the other guy said. "The minister has already spoken. You're giving me resources for 8 months. Can't you spare to Wang Kim and Kim Kang?" He stood up abruptly. "That guy, I need an explanation." Tuluong calmly replied, "The new information is that Kim Kang belongs to your son, who is from the Buddha clan." Hearing this, Jiahua frowned, looking even more displeased, and immediately asked back, "Are you sure?" He replied, "I believe Wang Diep." Trongtan saw that things were about to be exposed and shouted, "This can't be. How could Wang Kim be involved with the Buddha clan? He definitely doesn't know Kim Kang's identity." Trong Tulong pretended to be surprised. "Oh, do you really believe what I said? Or have you known that Kim Kang is from the Buddha clan for a long time?" He was annoyed and raised his voice. "Truong Tu, Luong, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't just say anything. I shed blood for the Heavenly Clan and made contributions to this action minister with my life. Are you implying that I and Minister On have no contributions?" Onhoa looked over at the captain, who had a dark expression. After a moment, Jia Hua spoke up. "All right, let Wang Diep present evidence for this matter to be investigated seriously." Seeing this, Trongtan appeared extremely indignant and displeased with Tuluong. He approached the old man and bowed his head. "Captain, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." As he stepped outside, Onhoa thought to himself, if what Trong Tulong said is true, the Buddha clan has infiltrated the Heavenly Clan. Then the responsibility of our intelligence department will be even greater the more people we uncover. But at that same time, at Wang Diep's place, he coldly said, "We're not fighting anymore," then slapped Wang Kim hard on the shoulder. He weakly fell to the ground and turned to Kim Kang, asking, "Are you afraid of dying, brother?" The guy shouted angrily, "You can't treat me like this. I once shed blood for the Heavenly Clan. I once risked my life for the Heavenly Clan. I'm not afraid of dying." Wang Diep replied, "If you're not afraid of dying, then you wouldn't talk like that. Tell me how many spies from the Buddha clan are in the heavenly clan. Be clear, and I will ensure your life. At this moment, seeing Wang Diep pull out a sharp knife, Kim Kang trembled in fear, his face pale. The guy turned pale with fear at the thought of losing his life at your hands. Kim Kang immediately spilled all the names of the spies from the intelligence agency, including Liu Wei, the action officer, and Chu Hao, who was threatening him with a knife to his throat. You kicked Kim Kang in the sensitive area and coldly said, I know I'm not mistaken. Strong and determined, you then turned to Wang Kim. Now it's your turn. Explain your relationship with the Buddha clan. He tried to crawl backward, avoiding Wang Diep's gaze. You rested your chin on your hand. No way. I think you're the one lacking national spirit. Immediately, Wang Diep lifted one foot, deliberately missing his target as he stepped over him. I got careless. I underestimated you. Everyone in this world struggles to survive choosing sides that have nothing to do with right or wrong. I insulted you to show respect. I'll let you die peacefully. Wang Hiem shouted in panic. At that moment, Tiu Tu rushed in and slapped him hard. Wang Hiem in pain held his face, tears welling up in his eyes. He trembled, 2 streams of tears began to fall, looking utterly weak. Wang Diep spoke up. Tiu Tu cancelled the order regarding Tu Wang Hiem. Little Tu can speak this time. He shouted angrily, Wang Diep, your grandpa. Immediately, you slapped him hard again and contemptuously said, Be polite, don't say filthy things. At that moment, Wang Kim sat still motionless like a defeated man. He spoke up to explain, I have nothing to do with the Buddha clan. Wang Diep raised the knife. If you don't tell the truth, then it's goodbye. Wang Kim still tried to add, I really have no relationship with the Buddha clan. I am... Suddenly, his whole body stiffened. His heart began to stop beating. Blood started pouring from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Shortly after, Wang Hiem collapsed to the ground, and those with you thought to themselves, the long-distance killing technique. Wang Diep said, That's not right about the heavenly headquarters. At that moment, the door to the death room opened, and a Kim Kang was thrown down onto the ground. Wang Diep announced, I told you the intelligence agency has 2 people, 2 action officers, no logistics. We can't rule out the possibility of lying. He rested his chin on his hand. This time, let's see where those 2 old men are hiding. By the way, where's Tu Wang Hiem? You sat down in a chair and replied, Tu Wang Hiem was killed to silence him. I don't know who did it. Tu Lung fell silent, after hearing this, thinking for a while before asking, Perhaps we can let Mao Vinan go. Wang Diep replied, He's not stupid. Whether he's being used or not is not important. As long as it doesn't harm the interests of Dao Tain, that's fine. Yes, may I ask if we will have someone from the Buddha clan at the high level of the heavenly headquarters? You answered, I think it's worth a try. After talking for a while, the 2 of them exchanged smiles and understood each other's thoughts. It was time to catch the spies.